This conference will now be recorded.
I know you're thinking about it.
He's gonna catch her.
Hey, you're the one that brought it up.
Oh,
there?
what is
That's
he?
amazing.
Almost.
He's a terrier slash Maltese, Shih Tzu,
What the size?
a little bigger, 22 pounds.
Oh, that's not bad.
But he's got warts. I took him to the vet. Vet refused to believe his age. Looked it up. This is last Monday. And then told me he can't eat hard food. And I said he eats it every night. And
That's why he's 18.
she says it's impossible. I said he does. Can't see.
Good evening, everyone. I don't think these are working yet, so just bear with us. I call to order the meeting of the Town Commission on May the 2nd, 2022 at 6 p.m. Thank you to those that are listening to our live audio feed. Try and speak up. Just a reminder that those that wish to make public comments during the meeting are encouraged to attend in person in our chambers or send comments to the town clerk prior to the meeting. Town Manager Stevens, pretend deputy clerk. Oh, you're going to do that?
Yep.
All right. Would you please call the roll?
Yep, Mayor Hurlbert,
Here.
Vice Mayor DeHaasa,
present.
Commissioner Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Pugh,
Here.
and Commissioner Bichelet.
Please rise and join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right then. We recently learned of the passing of one of our dear friends and neighbors, Dr. Ted Rotota. I would like to send our condolences to Ted's family, and please join me in observing a moment of silence in Ted's memory. Dear Ted. Are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? I will entertain a motion on the approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody nay? Presentations and proclamations. We will start with the annual financial statement audit presentation and acceptance of FY21 financial statement audit by the Town Commission. Mr. Ron Bennett, Town Auditor.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to once again come and talk about your audit for the most current fiscal year. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to work for you people. And second, I'd like to congratulate the management and staff for doing an excellent job this year. They're a joy to work with, and they do good work. So couldn't hope for much better. As you're well aware, the whole purpose of an audit is for the independent auditors, the CPAs, to render an opinion on the financial statements. And to that extent, once again this year, I'm happy to say we've rendered what we call a clean opinion. That is, we think these financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And as I've talked about before, governmental financial statements are kind of a mixed bag. You actually get two complete sets of financial statements in this report. They're done on different bases of accounting. Where your everyday activity goes on is in the fund level. And that starts on page 12 where you have your balance sheet, and the following couple of pages you have the income statement. And then there's a reconciliation to this other set of financial statements, which are in the front, which are on what's something called the full accrual basis of accounting. And the economic resources. Now the basis of accounting says when you put it in, and the other full economic resources says what you put in. So the full economic resources includes everything. The fund statements are on the modified accrual basis of accounting, and the current financial resources. So what that means is you only have current assets and current liabilities. Your long-term debt, your capital assets, your pension liabilities, they don't show up in the fund statements, they show up in the entity-wide statements. But your day-to-day activity and where you do your budgeting is at the fund level, and you only have two funds. You have the general fund and the capital projects fund, as you're well aware, and most of your activity goes on in the general fund. So there are actually a ton of reports in one of these documents. I'll go through them quickly. The first is on pages 1 through 3. That's the independent auditor's report. That's where we give our opinion on the financial statements. If you skip down to page 66 or 67, you get a report in accordance with government auditing standards. governmental entities in the state of Florida all have to be audited. One, all audits are done in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, and the governmental entities have a separate set of auditing standards called governmental auditing standards. So you get a report based on that requirement. And that one is not about the numbers in the financial statements, but it's about internal control and compliance. And I'm happy to say we didn't find any internal control weaknesses we were required to report, and we didn't find any non-compliance of any significant nature that we're required to report. The third report is the management letter required by the Auditor General of the state of Florida. It's on pages 68 through 70, and it has a number of things that we have to comment on, yea or nay. And the good news there is everything was fine. There's nothing in there that we found that was untoward. The fourth and final report is an independent auditor's report on compliance with section 218.415 Florida statutes. That's the statute that says what type of investment vehicles a governmental entity in Florida can invest their money in. And I'm happy to say that the town's in compliance with that too. Now that we got all the touchy-feely stuff out of the way, you'd probably rather talk about the numbers. And I owe you an apology. I had a printed copy of the reports for you. My secretary printed them out. I never looked at it. I don't deal with paper much anymore. Everything's PDF electronic. So I created the PDF version. That's what I've been looking at. I pulled them out. Lo and behold, it's last year's report. It's the 20 one. But the one up on the screen is the current year report. And so I won't have to read it from here, but first page we got is a table of the governmental revenues. This is for both funds combined, the general fund and the capital projects fund, although the vast majority of this is in the general fund. So your total revenues went up $930,000 and change. That's about a 12% increase. And man, you say, wow, man, that's a lot of money. That's a big increase when you had, 8 million one year and 7 million the next. Why was that? Well, primarily because building permits, they increased almost $600,000. You see went from 552 to 1,000,001, and the other biggie was charges for services. They went up about 75,000, and fines and forfeits went up 160,000. Everything else was, kind of washed out. The only thing that went down was grants of any significance. You had a big grant the year before, not much this year. But that's good news. If we go to the next page, you'll see the same stuff, only it's in a graphical form here, which I like. I can see the trend a whole lot better than I can looking at the numbers. I like the pictures myself, so you can see it's a kind of a stair step up. If you go to the next page, we'll go to the other side of the coin. That was the money coming in. The expenditures, this is the money going out. So how did that do? Well, we've gone up almost 12% on revenue, but we only went up 4% on expenditures. And the big jump there is public safety. That's always the largest single expenditure you have. And the increase was 289,000, almost exactly 4%, from 7.3 million to 7.6 million change. So if you could go to the next screen, please. Again, we have the pictorial that looks pretty much like the other one, and you would expect the revenues and expenditures to kind of go in lockstep. You project your budget. This is what it's going to cost us to operate the town next year, and then you budget enough revenues, primarily through your tax roll, to generate enough to cover that. So next slide, please. Fund balance. Fund balance is like your owner's equity. That's your assets minus your liabilities. It's what you got left over. And the town, this is just the general fund, because this is where your primary operations go on. And in a governmental entity, you have a number of categories in this. In a for-profit business, there's not many different categories, but in a governmental entity, there's quite a few of them. And the best one is the unassigned. That's the money that the town can use for any lawful purpose at the discretion of the governing body. And you have almost $5 million. It went up significantly, 982,000 during the year. You got 4.8 million of basically unfettered, equity that you can use as you see fit. The assigned is money that you have, but you have earmarked it. You already got it earmarked for a purpose, but you could change your mind. You have the authority to change that. Restricted is money that's earmarked, but by an external party or by action of law, and you have no authority over that. It has to be used for whatever that restriction is. And you didn't have any non-spendable. Non-spendable is like things in inventory, or if you had a prepaid expense, you've already spent it in essence. It's not gone, so you don't have any discretion over that either. But your your unassigned is about 71% of your total, which is, that's high. And that's a good thing. You live here on a barrier island in a hurricane zone. What happens if you have a category 4 or 5 hurricane? Well, you got the better part of $5 million kind of at your discretion here that you could do a lot of repairs and maintenance for those ones. That's about 65% of a year's expenditures. Your total external fund expenditures were about $7.5 million. So you could go 2/3 of a year without bringing any money and still be able to pay your bills, which is very good. It should stand you in good stead in any kind of emergency. Next slide, please. Again, this is just a graphical presentation of it. The blue at the bottom is the unassigned. That's the good stuff where you want to have lots of that. And the less of the other you have, probably the better. Next slide, please. This is the second set of financial statements. We've been talking about the governmental funds. This is the entity-wide financial statements. The net position is the equivalent of the balance sheet, but it's just on a different basis of accounting. And what you'll notice here is, well, what's the biggest number? Remember I said in the governmental fund, you just have current assets and current liabilities. But now all of a sudden you got these capital assets and non-current liabilities. So you got almost $15 million of capital assets, and you got almost $5.5 million of non-current liabilities, which is debt and your pro rata portion of the net pension liability for the Florida retirement system. And there was good news in that this year. You see these other two line items there called deferred outflows of resources and deferred inflows of resources. They don't exist in for-profit businesses, something unique to the governmental entities. And a deferred outflow at one time, up until a few years ago, was called a liability. An asset. And a deferred inflow was a liability. And you can see you got some big numbers there, $1.4 million and $2.7 million. And these are items that arise primarily due to the pension plan. And there was a radical change in the pension plan in the current year. You'll notice those non-current liabilities, they went down $4.4 million. The reason for that was the net pension liability dropped. And the reason the net pension liability dropped was the investments of the Florida retirement system had a very good year in 21. They went way up. The total liability stayed kind of sort of the same, but the assets went way up, and the difference between them is the net liability. Now, this could well flip-flop this year because the market has not been doing well the last few months. It's the worst start to a year in 20 or 30 years. So don't be surprised if that thing jumps back up to 9 or 10 million or more in the following year. Fortunately, you don't have to come up with the money on that. The only thing you ever have to pay is once a month, you pay your contribution to the Florida retirement system based on the contribution rates the Florida legislature establishes, which is not necessarily the same as the ones the actuary comes up with. Next slide, please. This then again is the income statement essentially for the entity-wide, and you've got, they do it in a slightly different manner, but this is on a full accrual basis. And it's kind of there for the sake of completeness, but from a governance standpoint, you're probably going to focus on that general fund and your budget to actual and those things. But starting back in, I think it was 2003 or 4, when they came up with a statement called GASB 34 is when they added this new set of financial statements. So that's been 17, 18 years now, so for a couple of decades, people kind of sort of got used to them. Next slide, please. I'm still not too sure how useful they are, though.
That's it, sir.
That's it? I'm all out of ammo. I'd be glad to try and answer any questions. And remember, if you think of something later you want to ask me, call me anytime. If I can't answer it on the phone, I'll be glad to come out and meet with you individually or as a group. We only work on the audit for a few months a year, but we're your auditors year round. And I'm glad to say that management calls us routinely during the year when they run into things that are unusual. Okay, what about this? And we're going to be doing this. How would I handle this? And these sort of things. I love it when they do that instead of just going off and doing something and then you show up and say, oh man, I wish you'd asked me about that. There's a famous accountant up in New Jersey. A guy wrote a book on accounting for his clients, and it says, call me before you do anything.
Good advice. Thank you very
So,
much.
Once again, we really appreciate the opportunity.
Anybody have a question?
I actually do.
There you go.
The, can we go to the slide before this one? Where we see this, what was it, that slide?
Net
You're talking about
position.
fund balance or net position?
The, with the retirement fund, where this big jump was.
Oh, yeah.
Between
it's
the- Oh,
only
yeah, it's
non-
right there, yes.
Yes, the
Sorry, it's
non-current
right there, yeah.
liabilities line there.
So we, our liability went down by 4.4 million.
Yes.
But that is simply because the way that the accounting works on the general retirement fund.
Yeah, let me explain how it works. The Florida retirement system, which by the way, is one of the best run state retirement systems around. It's highly funded and they do an excellent job, but it's what's called as a cost-sharing multi-employer defined benefit plan. There are hundreds of entities in it. Virtually all the counties, school districts, many of the municipalities, some of the special districts, any governmental entity in Florida is allowed to if they want to participate. And it's a very well-run plan. But what happens is they invest all the contributions that come in and they have a pot of money over here. And you know, the state runs that investment plan. They farm it out to a number of investment advisors and that sort of stuff, you know. But so that is your asset. And then the actuary gets the information on every person that's a participant in the plan, and they have their, you know, their age and their birth and their sex and when they started in the plan, and based on all their little tables, they say, okay, we expect this person to retire at 65 or whatever they're, you know, you don't have to be 65. But they got, especially for a high risk like police and firefighters, they can retire much younger. But they look at that and they make an assumption, okay, they're going to retire here and they're going to live based on actuarial tables this long. So they calculate, okay, this is their benefit. And then they calculate the present value of all those payments and say, this is our total liability as of now, present value terms. They then subtract that liability from the amount of money they have in the investment pot. The difference is your net pension liability. And because you're one of hundreds, if not 1,000 or more participants in there, they allocate a portion of that to the town based on your contributions that year as a percentage of the total contributions to it. If there were $1 million and you put 1,000 in there, you know, it's 1/1000th of it. But that's the way they come up with that number, and then say, okay, this is your pro rata share of the net pension liability. Well, the liability doesn't change very fast because you essentially have the same group of people. You know, there's a few dropping off and a few adding on each year, but the asset can fluctuate widely because the money's all invested in the market. So when the market goes way up, your liabilities kind of stay the same. Your asset went up. The liability, the net liability, the difference between them went down, and that's what happened this year. And that's why I think next year, wow, the assets tanked. Liability is about the same, so your net liability is going to be a lot bigger.
So in other words, that's really a number that we shouldn't pay too much attention to because it will fluctuate from year to year.
Yeah.
It's simple
Yeah.
answer
And we
is
have
the
no say in it.
stock market has a good year, we have less
Yeah.
liability. But it's no guarantee the stock market's
Right.
gonna go up 12% a year.
No
Right.
crystal ball.
And this year it didn't. And, you know, it's like, well, if you had $5 million in debt, you had a loan for that amount, you say, well, you know, I got to make payments on that. You know, every 6 months, I got to cut them a check. Well, the only check you cut to the Florida retirement system is every month based on the number of people you have in the plan and whatever the contribution rate is, and they only adjust those rates annually if they change them that often, you know, but they address it each year. And in conjunction with the actuaries, they figure out what rate is. It's a percentage of the, you know, of the compensation. And so that's all you have to do is once a month, you write a check for however much they say you're supposed to contribute. Nobody's ever going to show up at the door and say, here, you owe us $5 million.
Good
But
to
it
know.
can.
Everybody good? Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all
Thank
your
you.
work.
Mayor, we will need a motion and a second to
accept
accept
our
the
audit.
audit report.
Make a motion to accept the fiscal 21 audit report.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
You
Are we
can do it
good?
just like
Consensus?
that. Mhm.
Everybody in favor?
A.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I meant to say.
Whoa,
A.
okay, so
Yay.
I think we have,
Okay, good.
there you go. Thank you again.
Thank you all.
All right, so we have a proclamation for Municipal Clerks Week, which is May 1st through May 7th, 2022. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, and whereas municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, now therefore, I, Susan Hurlbert, Mayor, on behalf of the Town Commission and Town Manager of the Town of Ocean Ridge, do recognize the week of May 1st through May 7th as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our municipal clerk, Carl Armstrong, and new Deputy Town Clerk, Danielle Valdez, to all municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. All good? Sorry, Carl is not here.
You gave her the day off, it's Clerks Week.
Yeah, close enough. All right, another proclamation. Proclamation for National Police Week, May 15th through 21st, 2022, and National Peace Officers Memorial Day, May 15th, 2022. Whereas the United States Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and May 15th through May 21st as a National Police Week, and whereas Peace Officers Memorial Day and Police Week is an observance of the United States that pays tribute to the local, state, and federal peace officers who have died or who have been disabled in the line of duty. And whereas established by joint resolution of Congress in 1962, National Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. And whereas the members of the Ocean Ridge Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens in Ocean Ridge, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And now, therefore, I, Susan Hurlbert, Mayor of the Town of Ocean Ridge, call upon all citizens of Ocean Ridge to observe May 15th, 2022 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty. Let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. And another one, proclamation. Whereas telecommunications personnel serve as a vital and intricate part of the operations of all public safety organizations, whereas the observance of National Public Safety Telecommunications Week allows a specific and designated time period to acknowledge the performance of and give recognition to these individuals, and whereas the Town of Ocean Ridge Police Department Communications Center is staffed 24 hours a day, year-round, with a unique group of individuals who are trained, professional, and dedicated telecommunications personnel who strive to set the benchmark for excellence when providing service to the Town of Ocean Ridge. And whereas these individuals are responsible for responding to telephone calls from the general public for police, fire, and emergency medical assistance, for dispatching said assistance to help save the lives and protect the property of the citizens, business owners, and visitors of our community. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the driving force behind our nation's emergency rescue services, and as such, although they are not as visible as the men and women who arrive at the scene of emergencies, they are just as important. And whereas each second week of April is set aside by the Association of Public Safety Communications Officers, APCO, and the National Emergency Number Association, NINYA, to recognize public safety telecommunications personnel and their crucial role. And now therefore, I, Susan Hurlbert, Mayor of Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, on behalf of Town Commission, do hereby proclaim the week of April 6th through the 16th, 2022 as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. All right. All right, next on our presentations and proclamations, we have, where did we go here? Now I'm lost. Oh, we have concerned citizens for public safety on or near Old Ocean Boulevard. Ms. Cassidy, would you please approach the podium to give us your presentation?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity. We are the concerned citizens for public safety on or near Old Ocean Boulevard, and a number of us are here tonight. Can you stand up? Thank you. As a volunteer group of local concerned residents, we met on 2 consecutive Saturdays to share our concerns and brainstorm possible actions to help deter and slow down vehicular traffic on and near Old Ocean Boulevard. We all agreed that our primary concern in this effort is public safety. We had a modest turnout on April 16th of 10 residents and a much larger group of 20 on the 23rd. We discussed many different ideas and ultimately voted unanimously to propose the recommendations we are presenting here tonight. The traffic study commissioned in 2007 with Simmons and White referred to Old Ocean Boulevard as a recreational pathway and the jewel of the town, with particular concern to current and future construction just over the Woolbright and Ocean Avenue bridges, and a mounting concern for public safety on this recreational pathway. We're recommending the following improvements be implemented by the start of next season on a trial basis. Number 1, install temporary removable speed humps as opposed to speed bumps on Adams Road, Beachway, and Old Ocean between Beachway and Tropical, since there are no stop signs along that stretch. These would not need to extend the entire width of the road. Number 2 is adding signage stating residents only, local access only at Corinne, Thompson, Adams, and Beachway on A1A, or just off A1A as you enter those streets. Number 3 was to paint a center line down the length of Old Ocean as a visual reminder for vehicular and bicycle traffic to stay to the right, and as a reminder to the pedestrians that it is in fact a roadway. Number 4 is to clear the 5-foot right-of-way along Old Ocean, particularly I meant to say on the east side of the road, on the dune side, where overgrown vegetation in many spots does not allow space for pedestrians to move to the side when there's oncoming traffic. And number 5, consider lowering the posted speed limit on Old Ocean. If you made it an unusual number, for example, like 13 miles an hour or 16 miles an hour, it would certainly get people's attention, both drivers and bikers. There are other traffic control measures that are under consideration, and we're going to continue to meet as a group and work together. We all agreed that we need to talk to and empower our neighbors to reach out to the police when we see dangerous situations. We are requesting the continued support of the Ocean Ridge Police Department in educating the public and enforcing existing laws. Current efforts of public education have, for the most part, been well received. Our hope is that the recommendations we listed, along with continued education and enforcement, will ultimately change behaviors and help to improve public safety on the jewel of our town. We sincerely hope that the Commission will discuss these recommendations tonight as we go into budget season.
Thank you very much for all that time and effort that you all put into this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Since this is the first time we've had a chance to look at these considerations, I would maybe consider asking you all what you thought about opening this up to a public workshop. So we can utilize these, talk about it amongst the rest of the citizens, and see if there's direction, because these are still time and money expended on the behalf of the town. So, any input there?
Well, I have one question. Number 2, is that at A1A? Because it's not stipulated.
Correct.
Yeah, I think she said that.
As
Yeah.
you enter those roads from A1A,
Yeah, she
kind
said
of
it.
like what they have on Harbor Drive.
I agree with what you're saying down there.
Okay, so anybody else thinking that might be a good direction to go? Take these things and open it up to a public workshop? And we can
Well,
discuss this ASAP?
Hasn't the committee functioned as a public workshop, as
Well, I
a
don't think it-
citizens workshop?
No, I don't
No,
think it's
we
been
took that away.
public. Yeah, they
No,
took it
no,
away.
but it was a citizens committee that, what, had 20 people at the
But it's
last meeting?
specified, right, open it to the,
We are a workshop, essentially. That's what was determined at the last meeting when you cut us loose and asked us to do our homeowner thing.
Right, I don't
Right,
see a
right.
need for a public workshop. I
Yeah.
think what they're asking, if I read this correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, we sincerely hope that the commission will discuss these recommendations. In other words, this is the first tranche, if you will, of recommendations that these citizens unanimously came up with. And now they're asking the commissioners to check mark which ones we agree with, which ones we don't. Maybe we could put it on the agenda.
I think that's what
See, I
the
think you should
mayor
do-
is asking. Oh, sorry, go
Go
ahead. I think that's what the mayor is asking, to do a special workshop just for that item so that the commission can discuss it in workshop.
Why would we not just do it at the meeting?
Right, at the meeting. We don't need a workshop.
I don't need a workshop to discuss. I mean, these are some good ideas, and I
Right,
think we
but
should be able to.
Is
we
there a
just got 'em.
chance, right, is there a chance before we move forward on these, as you said, that there are some other ideas coming that we could have open this up to a workshop?
We opened it up to the public, if you don't mind.
Pardon me?
We opened it up to the public, and we had people come that hadn't originally signed up. So
I never
we
received
have-
any. No. I didn't receive any, and I don't think any of my neighbors did. Not that you were pushing them out, but I'm just saying, I don't think everybody in town.
It was entitled.
Was this on the,
welcome.
was this on the website?
No, because it wasn't
No.
town.
Right, it was a private.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. I mean, the ideas are very interesting and very good and usable, but could we consider opening this up to a public workshop where we could have anybody who wants to come, take part, and then we can discuss these items?
I don't think it's delaying what you guys did by any means. I think it's just now giving everybody else the opportunity in town, if they want to
Correct.
put their 2 cents where.
But I don't see why we encumber this into a separate workshop. Put it on the June agenda.
Regular agenda.
Just have it as an agenda item and alert the public that it's on the June agenda, and put these 5 items on the June agenda under that item number 3, whatever you want to label it, and we discuss it then.
Wouldn't you
And
rather have a,
that also gives us the town time
Time,
to get
right.
prices for speed humps, signs,
Right.
running a center line down the road, and that way it gives us also information to see what it would cost to do that as well. So I think put it on the agenda the next meeting is a good idea.
yeah, that's
That
a
way it's a
possibility.
town-wide discussion.
My thought about opening up to a public workshop was, once again, there might be some other ideas that come up that are working off of these considerations versus this is the final line.
And that's what a town meeting is for,
So,
because people can
that
come to
could
the
take a
town
long
meeting and
time.
discuss this stuff.
Okay, that could be a very long discussion item.
Well, we
You good with
had
that?
we had a very long meeting when we were going to go to the sheriff's department. It was almost 3 hours long. So I mean, that's the whole reason to have a town meeting. I mean, this workshop stuff, maybe people might not be able to get to a workshop. So that's what a town meeting is for. We have a town meeting so that all the people in town can come here and express their views. And that's,
Martin, got any input here?
whether it goes long, it goes long.
I have to agree with that. I mean, we specifically kicked this back from going this half workshop into let the residents get together, and they clearly did, and there's plenty of input that they came up with. I think it's something that at this point, they came forward with discussions, put it on the agenda for further discussions. If you want, we can have a quick discussion about this right now, and see if there's anything that, because ultimately it's us that's going to make the
Right.
decision of what are we going to do here.
But have you
But
seen
they
these? I
came
haven't
up
seen
with
these.
fantastic ideas, and I don't see why we need to.
So basically, you're saying that if we put it on the agenda, that would be we'd be working it then. Is that what you're
I think
saying?
there would be public notice. There would be
Right.
sufficient
just
public
got-
notice.
Right? So we'd be working it then. Hold on.
We just got this right now.
Right, that's what I'm
So we
saying.
get to look at it. I think the town staff can work on some numbers, and I think in speaking at a next meeting, when the rest of the folks can come here and advertising it, and anybody can come here and speak on this, and we're
Okay.
likely not going to make a decision at that time, maybe on some of
Right.
this stuff, but maybe somebody else comes up with a better idea at that
That's-
time.
okay.
And we could, this is a
So,
moving
yeah,
target.
Yeah, it's
This is
organic.
not gonna
No, I get it.
Remember, it says temporary.
yeah. Is
All
there,
right.
is there a way, if we put it on the agenda, and Christy, I'm asking you this question, is there a way that if we put it on the agenda, because, I mean, like you said, we just saw this, so we could open it up and have a wide discussion, both on the commission, on the dais, and also within. Is there a way that we could put it as a non-voting agenda item, so we just get a chance at least once to hash
Discuss.
everything else?
Certainly, I think you could do
Yeah.
that. I
Okay.
think that's what the mayor was suggesting,
Right.
is to, like, to have it as a workshop and just have an open discussion.
But
But
they're
we can
saying
do
to do
that
it
at a
under,
meeting.
under the
You can have an
confines of the
open
agenda.
discussion.
No, that's
at
what
a
she,
town
no,
meeting.
she's going there. She's going
Okay.
there. Right?
But my question
Why are we
was,
complicating this?
We want an answer.
but my question
Really?
was, can we make it a non-voting agenda item? Just so we all get the opportunity to digest what staff is going to bring to us, digest maybe this group maybe has 2 or 3 other things that they might or they may not, or anybody else has the opportunity to bring things forward when they see that it's on the agenda. Like, I know the Kaczynskis were really instrumental in the 2007 thing. So, I mean, and I'd really like to hear from all the affected parties on Old Ocean Boulevard too. So to make sure that they come to that meeting and talk about
So
stuff.
we can make a we reach out.
But I just disagree because it has to be a voting agenda item. Say there's something on it that we all agree on that we'd like to see happen. We can vote on just that one thing. And it's like I say, it's not a moving target, it's a work in progress. So say we decide we want to have the speed humps, all of us. So we get the speed hump.
Yeah, that's not,
And we
I
can
don't
vote
think
on
that's a
it. When you
problem.
have it as a non-voting item, you're making
All
no
right.
progress.
Tracy, please.
Mayor, I agree
Please, hold
with
on.
Commissioner Pugh on that, because we do have a short window for budgeting
Right.
season too, and you'll have a budget workshop in June prior to your regular meeting. So you're starting your meeting at 2:00,
Right.
and then you go into your regular meeting.
All right.
But then if you happen to vote on something at that meeting
Mhm.
regarding this, we can bring it back to the next budget workshop.
All right,
And-
we'll have
and
our
we can
discussion
always
there as an
defer,
agenda
too.
item,
Yeah.
right? Which
Right.
is basically what I'm saying, is we need to talk.
Right,
If
we might
we
talk,
don't, if we
right.
don't like the idea, or if
Or
we
let's say
don't,
we like 2 of them.
right.
And 3 of them, we say we need more
defer
input.
them
Right.
until the next one. and
So
have a
then,
discussion
do we
in
have
July.
consensus to move this to the agenda for next,
Well, yeah. Somebody at the dais.
well, do we have?
I would like to be heard. I would like the respect of this commission that your people here show you. We have worked honestly to do this because of the request that was made. We don't need another commission. All we ask is for you to look at these ideas. You are being totally disrespectful to us. And that's what I have to say. We've talked to, the police chief has signs that we don't even have to buy. There's a lot of things on that comments. I agree, you definitely have to look into it, but I think you guys owe us a little respect. Thank you.
I don't feel like anybody's being disrespectful. That's
Right.
surely not our
Right.
intent.
We just got this 30 seconds ago. All right, that's
But
fine,
we're
all right.
trying to be respectful to the monies that are being spent in town, everybody's property taxes that pay for all of this. That is
All
our
right.
position.
Please, Martin speaking.
I just want to know, I know that this has been going on for so many years.
Say their name
And
Yeah, please.
Martell, 46
It's not
South
quite
Harbor
public
Drive.
comment, but let's treat it as such.
Okay, so I just don't want to get a ticket for running on the wrong side of the road. And I think, a lot of people, I want to be consistent, and there's no consistency in this town whatsoever. I want to run, get in the shade, but I'm on the wrong side of the road, so I'm going to get a ticket. I think y'all need to set a standard here. If this is going to be what it is, left side, right side, the law. I mean, we all want safety. I run in this town for 25 years. I've never had anybody try to run me over. So, I mean, I think that's what we're trying to come up with a solution for you all. But in a sense, there's also a lot of the police are, our resources are being used on Old Ocean because they're sitting there watching us. And I feel like I'm being watched. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, then we are going here.
Peter Burling, 7 Osprey Drive. I can't let this moment go by without just saying to all of you, it's a tough job you do. We stepped forward, the 20 of us, to try to do some work that you were not in a position to do, in large part because of Florida's rather bizarre sunshine laws. We actually had the chance, thanks to the leadership of our chair, to have open, free, and productive discussions about the nature of what the problem is and how we might help solve it. It seems to me it would be refreshing for those of us who come on a regular basis if the commission could find a way to engage with us in an open and, shall we say, respectful exchange of ideas about the problem, what we did to try and find a solution, and the merits of the solutions we offer you. We are not done doing our work. We aren't gonna be done doing our work until sometime next year. But to do our work well, we need to be able to talk to you in a manner that is productive. And I want to close by saying our chair did a magnificent job. And if anybody thought this was easy, I'd like my $200 back.
That's what we kicked it back to.
I think what
I think
it
we knew
boils
that.
down to is we put this in the wrong spot on the agenda. That's really, if it had been an agenda item tonight, we would deal with it tonight, but it's not on the agenda, so, and we just got
You
the
needed
results.
consensus to put it on the agenda, that's why it's where.
Right,
it's
which
at.
is what we just did, right? Or we
Right.
talk, that's exactly what we're speaking about, is putting it on the next agenda. So
And
that
then,
gives
and
time.
then
Put
we
it for on
can,
this
we can actually have these conversations.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly right.
In the open. under
And we,
subject.
yes, and we can put it on the agenda, we can put it on the website, we can have an actual discussion back and forth.
So do we need a
Right.
motion for that?
Do we need consensus?
We need
Consensus
just
is fine.
consensus.
Jeff, you're good, right?
All right.
Yep,
All good?
Yes.
I'm not
Yes, we
answering
do.
for you. I was answering for me.
We were, yes.
All right,
Consensus.
so we have a consensus that we will put this on the agenda for the next meeting, that is June what, Tracy?
June 4.
Something like
I
that.
think it's 6.
Right. First Monday in June.
June 6th.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you very much again for all your efforts and work you did. So, Town Manager Stevens, will you please read the announcements?
Okay, meeting schedule for the next month is as follows. Budget meeting Monday, June 6th
There
at
it
2
is.
PM, followed by the regular town commission meeting at 6 PM. Planning and zoning commission meeting Monday, May 16th at 8 AM. Board of Adjustment meeting Monday, May 9th at 9 AM. All meetings are held in the commission chambers at Town Hall. The code enforcement meeting for tomorrow has been canceled. The town is hosting a blood drive event with One Blood on Friday, May 6th from 9 to 3 and Saturday, May 7th from 10 to 4. The bus will be parked behind Town Hall. All those who wish to donate blood can sign up through a link posted on the town's website. All donors will receive $20 e-gift card, a t-shirt, and a wellness checkup, including blood pressure, temperature, and iron count. Town Hall will be closed on Monday, May 30th in observance of Memorial Day. Please join us each month prior to the Town Commission meeting at 5 PM for the Building Official Educational Forum in the Commission Chambers at Town Hall. Details including topics to be discussed each month are on the town's website. Residents who wish to sign up to receive important town notifications and news through Civic Ready should sign up on the town's website or call Town Hall for assistance.
All right, I will now open the floor for public comment on any item not listed on the agenda. Please state your name, address, you know the drill.
Good evening. My name is Jean Burling of Osprey Drive, 7 Osprey Drive. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you, and town officials, members of the community, and thank you in advance for your time this evening. The following I am about to read is a letter written by Janet Shines of 120 Dolphin Road, Ocean Ridge, and I'm reading it on her behalf at her request. She could not attend tonight. Today, we would like to announce a new not-for-profit organization in town. It's called Starbrite Civic Collective. This group was formed by town residents who are inspired to serve others and help preserve the quality of life in our town. As a group, we will strive to inspire trust in the community with transparency, a politics-free environment, and a spirit of cooperation for the greater good. We will endeavor in all we do to benefit women, men, and children in our community in a positive and caring manner, and we will listen, learn, and respond to the needs in our community. While we will not be able to support every ask, we do believe that we can help many through our strong esprit de corps culture as a team, hard work, and our generous sponsors. Today, we would like to announce we have an initial anonymous donor who has donated a very generous sum to allow us to begin our work. This generous donor was inspired to donate the funds by the actions and the caring concern of 2 Ocean Ridge police officers who responded to a medical emergency in our town. These 2 officers were not just performing their job, they went above and beyond the call of duty to ensure the well-being of our resident. Their compassion, concern inspired our donor to help those in need, help and further inspire our collective to take action now. These funds and all funds we raise ongoing through donations and fundraising will be used solely to benefit our community and the needs of our residents. It's our hope that all residents will continue to enjoy the quality of life here in Ocean Ridge through the ongoing efforts of our police department and the new efforts that will be delivered upon our not-for-profit group. In the coming months, we will share more with each of you about our mission, purpose, and operating principles, and engage with the town and town residents to understand how best to serve those in need. We look forward to serving you and thank you for your time. Signed, Janet Shines, President of Starbrite Civic Collective. I'd like now, with your permission, to invite the rest of the board members who are here at town meeting to the podium with a graphic of the check that we received from our anonymous donor.
Holy cow.
Holy cow! Holy Toledo! How about that?
Thank you.
Yeah, get a pic for sure.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Janet,
Thank
and
you,
your hard
anonymous
work.
donor.
Jean,
Wow.
too. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, then. Try topping that. Okay, Terry.
Anyone else that was
Yeah.
rushing up?
Wow.
That doesn't go to the town treasury. It stays with them, I think. Sounds like a wonderful thing to have happen. Terry Brown, Harbor Drive South. First of all, I just want to quickly thank all of you for what you did in purchasing. Did it go through the closing of the property? You know, Florida has lost 9.5 million acres of wetland. That's half of what Florida used to be, full of wetland, natural environment. And to save a little bit, 9 acres is wonderful. And you all are to be congratulated for that. But I did want to talk also about the Board of Adjustments. I know you're making appointments tonight for both P&Z and the Board of Adjustments. I'm not going to talk about that process, except to say that it's important that you have people on the Board of Adjustments because it's a little unique body that any decision that the applicant wants to make to appeal goes to circuit court. And also, by the way, the commission can appeal a decision from the Board of Adjustments, and they also would take it to circuit court. In that case, the town attorney would represent the commission, and the town would have to hire an attorney to represent the Board of Adjustments. I'm not suggesting that any of the recent decisions that they made goes that far. But it's important that the people, I served on the Board of Adjustments for 10 years. You know, you were there a little while when I was there. Mm-hmm. But I was recruited. They dragged me in there because I worked for the state of Florida and I did contract management and I did construction management, general services work, facility management. So they said, you're the guy we want. You need to have people on those boards that understand the simple concept of a hardship. It's not a self-imposed item. You don't get to create a hardship and then go to the Board of Adjustments to get a variance. Some of the decisions that were made and the order in which they're made could be improved. What I would suggest is that you hire someone, either an attorney, not the town attorney, but an attorney that is an expert in Board of Adjustments and protocol, parliamentary protocol, so that you don't have any mistakes. It's just, I've been to the meetings, I've read some of the decisions, and this is what I think you ought to consider doing. You may not need to do it yet, depends on who you appoint to the board. Does anyone have any questions about why this is coming up? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening. We are Nancy and Gil Fornatora from 7 Inlet K Drive. And we're here this evening to bring some information forward that may be of interest to all.
May I say, first of all, that Gil is the brains of this operation and I'm the eyes and the ears. He's had an eye operation, so can't see his notes all that well.
Yes, that's
Would you like
a
to read?
recent problem. Anyway, I'm here this evening to bring this information forward, and I will start with the meeting that was held by the Board of Adjustment on November 17th, which was held in this room, and for comments from the floor in that meeting, from a commissioner, ourselves, and then from the board dais, a town official, all recommending a rejection of the approval of a variance request. That's what took place, and then after a rather brief discussion amongst the board members, it seemed like a rush to a motion to take a vote, which went 3-2 to accept and approve of the variance. Well, it's hard to imagine how 3 people saw what 2 people didn't, or vice versa. The comments from the floor by the commissioner and ourselves and from the town official were very strongly against approving the variance, and they were totally ignored. So from there, I go on to say that the board members all said that they made site visits to the subject in question, which is our adjoining lot. And on our document request, we asked for all documents, all records, telephone notes, emails, or any information at all in regard to materials that they would have used and consider their decision on the matter before them, and all returned an answer, there were none. So one can only deduce after that, that with no materials and of the site visit, that the only due diligence that was available to the Board of Adjustment was a site visit. Now, on a site visit, there was a floating dock sitting in between the dock next door and our property line. And anyone, a 7th grader, would have seen that the rack that was on the left, on the edge of the dock, was within inches of our property line. In addition, the 10 by 10 platform that was there was fit into a space on the west side of their existing dock. Well, if they had checked the records that were available to them, they would have seen that the plan submitted for construction of the dock placed the edge of the dock 12.5 feet from the property line. The variance request was for a 7 feet allowance on the 10-foot setback, which meant that it would be within 3 feet of our property line. Well, I think a 7th grader could deduce that when you try to put 10 feet into a 12-foot 5 space, you only have 2.5 feet left. And that's right off the bat, while you're looking at it, cannot be within the code, even with the variance. So at that moment of inspection and visit, it was obvious that that installation could not have met the code even with the variance. So from there, we have to also mention the fact that there was no contact made with the lot next door to see what the impact would be or what comments we would have in regard to the narrative that the applicant had made during the board meeting. There was no contact, no phone calls, no nothing.
Sir, we've gone over our 3 minutes, so can I ask you to just tie it together, please?
Wow.
I know. I know, it
All
goes
right.
quickly.
Can I take my 3 minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
So now we have the due diligence. If they had done due diligence, they would have found out that there was a removal letter of April 2018. They would have found there was no permit. They would have found that there was a town letter to the applicants explaining how to get a variance, and within that letter was a provision that they had to certify certain things. And then when the application was made, the applicant left out that part of the provision that the town said must be met in order to get a variance. It was completely omitted by the applicant. Then we have to go back to the 2018, when the same people went without permit and built pilings right on our property line. Right on our property line. With the intervention of Mr. Titcomb, they were forced to move the pilings back, and we have a picture of that. Then we can go on to,
They're not here for hurricane season.
oh yes, that's the other thing. The lot next door admitted, and they said that they do not remain here during hurricane season. And that leaves that structure sitting right off of our bedroom. Closest building would be our bedroom, would be there all during hurricane season. And from a safety point of view, I don't think I'm going to have time to get to it, but there's much to be said about that structure being at that position where a hurricane could lift the end of that dock, and either a tornado or a hurricane could lift it out of the water and rip it from its moorings, and it would land right in our bedroom or in our patio. And even with the variance, they could not come into code. And if the board had done their due diligence, they would have recognized that there were more than one violation of code when they looked at it, because they only applied for a setback variance and there were other violations of code existing on that structure. Now, they also had multiple opportunities. If you had checked the records, you would have seen that they built a new seawall dock and built and constructed a boat lift. So they had many, many opportunities to arrange any kind of aquatic structure that they wanted and done it within code with pre-planning, and that was not done.
Safety.
The safety issue. The safety issue was the opinion of a non-professional, certainly an amateurish approach to what safety should be. And we have a marine contractor who's worked these waters for decades and has said there's no appreciable difference between the safety being a short distance between the placement of their dock on their property within code. There would be no difference. And I, as a graduate engineer and an engineering officer in the United States Navy, whose division was responsible for basically for water transfer and liquid movements aboard ship and at sea, came to the same conclusion that the marine contractor did, that there is no appreciable difference on wake action coming down that canal, the short distance between putting that dock in the code place or putting it out of code.
Conclusion.
The conclusion, this all could have been avoided if this had been looked at, if due diligence had been done, and it was saved a lot of time, effort, and money for the throwers, for ourselves, and for the town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your input there.
So can I just follow on one thing? Because this is the second time, not in your case, somebody else approached me on this. How does the town verify that the Board of Adjustments is getting accurate and proper documents?
Meaning on the
Well,
application itself?
According to this,
Thank you very much.
what was presented here, the Board of Adjustments was not given the accurate, let's call it, documents for this situation.
So they get an application that's given to us by the applicant. They
Yeah.
also get a staff report
Yeah.
with the application.
So I guess your question
The
is,
second time this has happened in the last 2 months.
I think that's not what they're discussing here, is
No.
misinformation to the Board of Adjustments.
That's what I'm
The
saying.
Yeah, that's not
the
what they're
problem
saying.
that misinformation that
Yeah, they
happened in this particular case is that there was evidence, supposed evidence that was presented in form of a letter by the applicant about specifically the wave action and the wave action in comparison to where the placement of the dock would be safer or not. And that played a vital role in the decision of the board members that approved the variance ultimately. And that letter was never properly challenged.
That's what I'm getting at.
And that the
vetted
problem and the problem that I'm trying to make to all these Board of Adjustment members or to clarify to them is they are sitting there as 5 judges. This is literally a board that is, the next step is circuit court. It's the Board of Adjustments, and then after that it's circuit court. These 5 members are basically judges in this town that are ruling on decisions that come in front of them, and they need to approach this more from a judicial perspective, where they look at this and go like, well, it's nice that you brought me a letter, but where's the person that wrote that letter? I would like to question him. I would like to hear the answers. And in this particular case, unfortunately, the neighbor also was not represented by counsel at the Board of Adjustment meeting, obviously not thinking that they needed to go that far, but it is a quasi-judicial meeting in its essence, and we are, the residents that go in front of it and the affected parties are not quite seeing it that way, or they're not treating it that way, whereas they should be treating it that way. It is where you need to hire an attorney.
That's what
and
Mr. Brown
bring
was
your
saying.
own attorney to that board.
Right. That's
It's
what
one
he
of
said as well.
one of the most important boards that we have in town. It's an overlooked board and one of the most important ones, unfortunately.
Do you mind if I make a comment as a member of the Board of Adjustment? Carolyn Cassidy, 7 Hudson. As I say, with issues that we deal with in our own life, we make the best decision we can with the information that we have at that moment. And I do my homework, and I do my reading, and I do my due diligence. I read the packet, and I take the packet, and the documents that are given to me as Word. So if there's another code violation that happened and we weren't told about it, is that incumbent on me to go into the office and ask?
No.
I mean, we do take our job seriously.
No.
You're making the point I was making. You can only use the
Yes.
evidence that you're
With what
handed.
we have.
Carolyn,
and it's-
let me make this clear. I'm not criticizing the members of the board about how I can follow the thought process that all the 5 members, because I was at that board meeting, at the Board of Adjustment meeting. I can follow each one's thought and each one and come to their decision if I wanted to go that route. It's not incumbent on you to go and do more homework than what is presented to you. You're supposed to get a package, and with that package and the evidence that is presented in front of you, you're making a decision. And I get how you reached your decision. I talked to Bruce Hinton about this. I get how he reached the decisions, and I know how all the other people reached their decisions. I can follow that. The problem is not how you got there. The problem is that there is, and not just on the Board of Adjustment itself, also on the public that comes in front of you, not being represented by council. It is a quasi-judicial position. You're sitting there as basically a judge. Your position on that board is you are a judge.
No,
In
I
a
know.
quasi-judicial, you are literally the judge and
Yeah, but
jury.
my point is that there needs to be a much more thorough vetting of the information that we are given, particularly
Agreed.
the Harbor Drive South. That was a travesty, that was never even mentioned, that she was expanding that balcony.
That's what I'm getting at. It's very simple.
So, anyway,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're all learning from the experience on that.
I'm sorry. Can I speak just a little further?
If she approved it.
Okay. Pardon me? Yes.
No. I'm sorry, Ms. Morgan.
In the situation that we find ourselves, we have a variance on our property in perpetuity. And the throwers, on the other hand, are trying to fit their floating dock into a variance that it can't fit into. So they're going through all these motions. We are having all this aggravation. Like my husband said, time, money, and we don't obviously need that. But the point is, the decision that this board came to has affected us, our property value, and us personally, emotionally. So the impact from the board is huge. And I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comment?
Good evening, James Love, 5700 Old Ocean Boulevard. My neighbor has encouraged me to come down here and tell you a couple stories. Sitting on the beach, mind my own business, dog comes out of the water, comes up, shakes off right in front of me. I didn't encourage this dog or nothing. Another dog, same story twice. Guy comes down the beach, dog defecates, they bury it twice. And, you guys do what you want with that, but I just wanted to tell you that story. Another story where I come from in Jersey, rebuilding the boardwalk. We omitted the center line on the boardwalk for better nailing. We omitted the center line, the people freaked out. They didn't know which way to walk. So I think those people who put all that time in, if you start with the center line, I think it might help you. True story. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comment?
I have several written.
That's what I was
comments.
just about to ask. Are we finished with everybody from the floor? All right, Tracy, we have some emails or?
Yep. Gary and Penny Kaczynski, 6000 Old Ocean Boulevard. Gary and I are both out of town and unable to attend the meeting tonight. We respectfully request the commission to take no action on the fate of Old Ocean Boulevard without the input of all affected and concerned parties. We have lived on Old Ocean for almost 20 years and have had no opportunity for any input with the newly formed task force. Thank you for your consideration. Kim Jones, she did not leave an address. On Saturday, April 23rd, Ocean Ridge offered to residents the ability to have personal papers shredded. I participated in this generous offer. Upon driving through to the shred area, I was greeted most warmly by town staff and thereafter directed to the shred area. It was there I was again greeted by our mayor, town manager, and police chief on a Saturday. Our police chief actually carried my material to the shredder. I write this letter in disbelief, yet total admiration for such a dedicated, cohesive team effort. Thank you, Ocean Ridge, and especially all the players that make it a place we are proud to call home. This one is from Kathleen Rovalato from 6530 North Ocean Boulevard. My husband, John, and I would like to thank you and Ocean Ridge Town Commissioners for the recent vote to purchase the Priest property located in the Mangrove Lagoon behind the town office. By doing so, a small group of dedicated civil-minded officials have taken action to preserve a beautiful and environmental asset in Ocean Ridge. We appreciate your professionalism and dedication in keeping Ocean Ridge the most perfect place in Southern Florida. And then last but not least, we have Fritz Devitt from 18 Harbor Drive South. He says, I attended the recent Board of Adjustment meeting since both items on the agenda interest me personally and have significance as establishing a precedent on future requests. As you are aware, it is a very difficult undertaking to obtain a variance. In fact, the law is very clear that if the hardship is created by the property owner, a variance should not be granted. The Ocean Ridge Code, just like codes in our surrounding municipalities, does an excellent job in setting forth the unique conditions required for approval of a variance. Specifically under section 6373(3)B, to approve a variance, the board shall find that all 10 conditions have been met, and if not, then by code, the variance must fail. I do not believe either applicant came close to qualifying for a variance. But this is not my primary concern for writing you. I am worried about the precedent being set and rulings on future applications by the board. At yesterday's meeting, both variances granted special permissions that many waterfront residents in Ocean Ridge would like as well. For some reason, the tone of the proceeding was that if the applicant pleaded health, safety, or some sort of self-imposed hardship, the criteria had been met. Further, if your neighbors are okay with it, then that too would be considered relevant. I don't fault the board for their decisions, as I don't think some of the members have been properly schooled on how to process a variance. It would have been helpful if the town attorney explained to the board that to grant a variance, there are certain conditions that must be met. In fact, what I witnessed yesterday was a neighbor trying to convince the board that their property rights had been violated. If properly handled, the neighbors' opinions as to whether they like or dislike the request should be of little to no relevance. The proper result would be reached by following the letter of the code and not by trying a case between neighbors or appealing to sympathy. It probably would make sense for the town to hold a workshop designed to educate board members on how to process variances and other matters that come in front of the board. Please try to nip this in the bud before it gets out of hand.
Thank you. Is that all we have? Thank you very much. All right then. Town Manager Stevens, will you please read the consent agenda into the record?
Certainly. Adopt minutes of the regular town commission meeting of April 4th. Adopt minutes of the special town commission meeting of April 12th. Acceptance of the revenue and expenditure reports for March 2022. Ratify the unbudgeted emergency expenditure of $27,885 to rapid equipment response for town hall generator fuel tank replacement. Adopt memorandum of understanding between the town and Palm Beach County Police Benevolent Association regarding section 20.4 of the agreement to address top-outs. Approve building permit extension requests and waiver of permit renewal fees for 28 Hudson Ave, 82 Island Drive, and 10 Harbor Drive South.
I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
And I hear an aye.
All those in
Aye.
favor? Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. All right. Regular agenda items. Appointments to open positions on the Board of Adjustments, Planning and Zoning. Town manager, would you please advise us on this?
Yes, several appointments to the various boards will lapse and will need to be filled as follows. Planning and Zoning Commission, 2 alternate Planning and Zoning Commission members for 3-year terms. The following have expressed a desire to be a part of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Roger Brenner, incumbent for the alternate position. Nick Arsley, new appointment for alternate position. And Robert Rodriguez, a new appointment for the alternate position. And then the Board of Adjustment has 1 regular board member for a 3-year term and 2 alternate board members for a 3-year term. The following have expressed a desire to be a part of the Board of Adjustment. Bruce Hinden is the incumbent for the regular position. Nick Arsley for the incumbent for the alternate position. And also Nick put his name in for either one. So he put his name in for either the regular or the alternate. And John Lipscomb is the incumbent for the alternate, but he put his name in for either the regular or the alternate. And then Robert Rodriguez put his name only in for the alternate position on the Board of Adjustment.
It says.
So it says planning and zoning as well.
Well, right, but what I'm saying is, for the Board of Adjustment, he only put his name in for the alternate position. He wasn't wanting to do a regular position.
Right, we have an incumbent in there.
Right.
All right, I'll now open the floor for public comment. Not hearing from the public. Floor is now closed. Town Manager Stevens, will you please proceed with the selection process for
Yes,
planning and zoning?
Your selections are by ballot, so I will proceed to give you round 1.
So by the way, there's 2 positions, so on 1 ballot, we can check 2 spots, correct?
Yep, there's instructions for you here for 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is your fingerprint Smith?
Okay.
All right.
This is for the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have it's unanimous. Roger Brenner and Robert Rodriguez.
Ooh. All right, thank you very much. I will now entertain a motion on appointing the P and Z Commission members as voted.
So moved.
Board of Adjustment.
We'll do one at a time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion.
Motion.
We have a second?
Yeah, it's unanimous. Yes, second, third, whatever.
Okay. Everybody who says aye?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. All right, congratulations, Mr. Rodriguez. And
Mike's
Mr.
back
Brenner. Yeah, I saw Melanie back there.
Okay, so now we will
He
move
went to get
to
variance.
the Board of Adjustment, and I am removing Robert Rodriguez's name from the ballots because he can't serve on both at the same time.
Which then makes the whole process, well, unless you want to change the regular, I guess.
Don't start.
There's names at the bottom.
Don't start.
So we're getting 1 ballot
Should
for,
be in order.
So 1 ballot for the,
Yeah, you're getting 1 ballot. It has regular members at the top.
oh, okay. I see what you're doing.
Okay.
I see what you're doing.
Got it.
but according to this, they didn't all apply for the regular position, right?
No, they didn't.
So this is wrong. Am I crazy?
No,
Robert
incumbent.
Rodriguez was the only one that didn't apply for regular member.
Right, but Bruce Hinden incumbent for regular position.
Yep.
So he's not on the alternate list, correct?
I see where Steve's confused.
And then Nick and John wanted either.
Right, she didn't say either, just says alternate.
Yep.
It meant either.
It meant either.
Yes.
All right. Still confuses me. Because it makes no sense.
vote your conscience, Steve.
Well, it's a no-brainer on the, right, that's what I'm getting at.
No, you don't have to vote.
There's one more. He
Oh.
has to.
You don't have
He
to do anything.
can't recuse himself.
Let's say that. You don't have to vote for everybody that's on the list.
No.
Is that true?
Well, you don't have any write-ins. We don't have a line out the door, so.
Jeff,
I know.
okay. We have, for the regular member, we have 5 votes for Bruce Hendon. And then for the 2 alternates, we have 5 votes for John Lipscomb and 4 votes for Nick Arsley.
All right, then. I'll entertain a motion on appointing the Board of Adjustment members as voted.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yes. Congratulations, everybody.
All right, so that's
I'm already
that.
worn out.
So where are we, 2? What
3.
time are we? Okay.
Number 3.
So number 3, this is proposed ordinance to establish combat automobile theft program, first reading from a town attorney, Ms. Goudreau.
This should actually be second reading.
Second.
Oh, it is, it's up here.
Yeah, it's
It's,
the
yeah, mistake.
combating auto theft program through the police department.
So again, no changes have been made to it. It's the
Right.
same program that was originally presented. It's completely voluntary, and it's up to each resident to choose whether they wish to participate in the program or not.
All right, I will open the floor to public comment. I will close the floor to public comment. I'll now open the floor for commission discussion. Jeff, do you have any input here?
No, second reading, it's pretty much.
Right.
boilerplate
Christine,
stuff.
same? Steve, I know you're all good.
It's voluntary.
I feel the same. I get it. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance 2022-4 on
Second.
second reading.
Do I hear a second? Here we go. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right then. Easy peasy. All right, agenda item number 4, second reading of ordinance number 2022-5. Town Manager Stevens, will you read the ordinance by title into the record?
Yes. Second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2022-05, an ordinance of the town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its code of ordinances at chapter 67, buildings and building regulations, article 3, entitled technical codes and other construction standards by amending section 6751, entitled permit required, generally demolition permits to authorize waiver of a letter of credit requirement by the building official for a demolition permit issued pursuant to subsection B1, or any other demolition permit for the interior of a structure, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you. Town Attorney, do you have anything to advise on this item?
No, Madam Mayor, this is second reading. This is just to give the building official the discretion to waive the letter of credit requirement for a partial or interior demolition.
All right
I
then.
thought it also included a sidewalk, a walkway in the house.
I don't believe that's part of that's outside of demolition, isn't it?
Well, I had this whole discussion with you.
Correct. So that discussion was about whether or not a sidewalk would be
No,
considered
a
demolition.
walkway,
It
let's
would
go.
not. It would not, is what we're saying. So this is having to do with construction in the physical structure of the house.
So if I go to remove my walkway,
That is not considered a demolition.
so, okay.
All right, I'll now open the floor for public comment. Hearing none, I will close the floor. I'll now open the floor for commission discussion. Jeffrey?
No, it's exactly what I want to see changed.
Okay. Christine?
He's brilliant. What can I say? Very good.
Steve? We good?
Yeah.
All right.
You know my objections to it.
Yes.
I voiced them last time.
I'll entertain a motion for adopting ordinance 2022-05 on second reading.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
You're supposed to say nay.
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 Motion carries 4-1. All right then. Agenda item number 5, second reading of ordinance 2022-06. Town Manager Stevens, please read the ordinance by title into the record.
Ordinance number 2022-06, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its code of ordinances, Chapter 63, General Administrative Provisions, Article 4, entitled Site Plan Review Procedures by amending Section 6356, entitled Development Plan Review, by modifying the authority of the Planning and Zoning Commission to permit the deferral of a development plan review application, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Town Attorney Godot, do you have any advice for us?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is on second reading, and this is to allow for deferral of the Planning and Zoning Commission. As mentioned on first reading, it also allows for a specific entry into this ordinance that they also consider landscape plans as part of their review.
All right, thank you. I'll now open the floor for public comment. Hearing none, I will close the floor. I'll open the floor for commission discussion. Jeff?
I'm just not in favor of it, like I voted no last time. I'm not in favor of it this time.
Christine?
I'm in favor of it last time and this time.
So I have a different problem, okay? And I actually pulled it the first time we did the reading. And this, Tracy, I think should not happen at a town meeting. If you read what the public's reading on the agenda, it does not mention a word about landscaping. It says deferral of a development plan review. And then you have to go into the packet, which is on page, I don't even know what page I'm on by this time, page 60, where it finally says proposed landscape plan as part of the department review. In other words, it's giving P&Z the power to nix or okay your landscaping plan. Nowhere in the public agenda, item number 5, does it say that. And in the first reading, it was item number 13. I went and pulled that one, and nowhere does it mention landscaping in that one either. So that should not happen, because the public doesn't know what we're actually voting on if they only have what's up on the board here.
Okay, so I'm taking the title block from the ordinance. That's what's printed on the agenda. That's the title block of the
Well, we
ordinance.
should fix that. We shouldn't mislead the public to what we're voting on. We're not mislead, that's the wrong word.
6, right.
Chris,
Number
do you wanna
6 on the
address that?
ordinance.
'Cause
So I think there might be a disconnect between the cutout on the agenda and actually what's in the title of the ordinance. And
Right.
sometimes this happens in drafting, is that when we initially drafted this, it was just the deferral. That's all we were doing. But in between going to planning and zoning and bringing it here, we discovered that in their review,
Yep, I know the whole
there's no
history,
specific.
but it should, the item number 5 should include the word landscape on
So
the agenda.
the
I know it's there,
ordinance title
but
has.
that's the packet.
So
Does
what
anybody out
happened
here
was we
have the
didn't
packet? No,
fix
no
it
one
in
has.
the packet title.
Right,
I
it's in the
understand.
ordinance itself.
I understand
So
that.
what
Does
can
I
does
understand
everybody
what you're
understand,
saying.
Tracy, do you
Yes,
understand my
we get
point?
it. We
I
get it.
understand,
We get it.
absolutely.
Okay,
So, Martin, do you have any comments to make here?
And Steve, we do have a packet that is available for the public. It's printed and it's sitting right there, at the entrance.
one
building.
packet?
It's online. It's online.
It's
as
online, I
well.
know it's online.
Yeah, but yet you're creating a new law for the town.
Yep.
This is a
No, I
law
get what
that
you're
everybody
saying.
should know that now this is a new law you're creating for the town. It should be very well documented what the law really
In the
is about.
public part of the agenda.
Right, clear
And
on the
So
agenda.
It's not.
I think everybody's thrown themselves on the sword and is agreeing.
Yeah,
Well,
we
I got
agree.
another one in there too.
All right,
Same thing.
So we have to.
Therefore.
Be more clear in the title block.
correct. That's exactly what Commissioner Cos was saying.
What are you calling this the title block?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
On the
Yes,
agenda.
that's exactly what I'm
Exactly
saying.
Martin, did you have anything to add here?
Poor Martin
I
didn't
was,
talk.
I attend most of the planning and zoning meetings, and they're, following their discussions, following their limitations on some of the things that they have, and they rightfully are asking for this, so I don't have a problem.
Are there any meetings you don't attend?
Yeah, actually, tomorrow's meeting, I'm definitely not gonna attend, I'm gonna be sitting in the plane.
It was
Wait, it's
canceled.
been canceled. We looked out.
We heard you.
I
Got
see him
out of
across
this
the
one,
room.
I guess.
I congratulate you on that. All right, I will entertain a motion on adopting ordinance 2022-06 on second reading.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Nay.
Vote carries 3-2. All right, agenda item number 6, second reading of ordinance number 2022-7. Town Manager Stevens, will you please read the ordinance by title into the record?
Ordinance number 2022-07, an ordinance of the town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its code of ordinances to correct the name of the Sea Conservation Zoning District to make it consistent with the current comprehensive plan zoning map and the future land use map, which all refer to the Sea Conservation Zoning District as the PC Preservation Conservation District. Chapter 64, zoning, Article 1, district regulation, section 64-6, Sea Conservation District, and in Chapter 65, telecommunication towers and antennas, section 65-3, general requirements, and section 65-5, special exception uses, and amending Chapter 63, general administrative provisions, Article 4, site plan review procedures, section 6353, major development application and site plan requirements to encourage PC preservation conservation rezonings by easing the submittal requirements for rezoning vacant property to PC preservation conservation, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Town Attorney Godot, will you advise us on this item?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This item is to sort of clean up some inconsistency in our conservation district title between our future land use map and our zoning map and the actual code. And it's also to ease the restriction on applying to convert vacant land into the PC Conservation District by removing the requirement for a survey if it's vacant, undeveloped land.
All right then. I will open the floor for public comment. I will close the floor to public comment. Open the floor for commission discussion. Jeffrey? All good?
Good.
Good. Good.
Good. All right, entertain a motion
Move
on
to
adopting
adopt.
ordinance.
I move to adopt ordinance 2022-7 on second reading.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify nay. Motion carries unanimously. All righty then. Where are we now? Okay, agenda item number 7, first reading of ordinance 2022-08. Town Manager Stevens, please read the ordinance by title into the record.
First reading, adoption of ordinance number 2022-08, an ordinance of the Town Commission of Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending Chapter 66, Environmental Regulations, Article 4, Landscaping, Division 2, Water Efficient Landscapes, providing for local implementation of the mandatory year-round landscape irrigation conservation measures rule of the South Florida Water Management District, 40E-24 FAC, providing for intent, purpose, applicability, and definitions, providing for year-round landscape irrigation conservation measures, exceptions to the schedule, providing for additional requirements and variances, providing for water shortages, providing for enforcement and penalties, and for other purposes, and providing for codification, the repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you. Town Attorney Godot, will you advise us on this, please?
Yes, as you may know, South Florida Water Management District has been going to cities throughout Palm Beach County, asking them to adopt a similar ordinance. Some cities have adopted a period of 2 waterings per week. What you have before you is to allow for 3 waterings per week. The important thing to note is that this really is just localizing existing law. Currently, these districts have these laws in the Florida Administrative Code, which allows them to enforce them locally within municipalities if you're not following the 3-day per week schedule for watering. So it can be enforced through South Florida Water Management District. Currently in Ocean Ridge, what this ordinance does is it adopts it locally and gives us enforcement ability within the town, which is important because even South Florida Water Management District will say what they want this ordinance to do is start educating everybody. So you understand you have 3 days a week, depending if you're on the odd address or even address, the days alter, no waterings on Friday. And this way we can enforce it locally. And when I say enforcement, I mean initially an education process. And then when we start getting into the process more, if there's violators, we can issue warnings. The first offense is a warning. You can issue multiple warnings leading up to that, but then it's the violators who just are never going to comply, who can't get a variance, who don't meet the exceptions, that then you can start to enforce this locally. If the town doesn't adopt it, South Florida Water Management District can still enforce it. The only thing that we've also heard that if we don't adopt it, if grant opportunities become available in the future with South Florida Water Management District, we may not be at the top of the list if we don't adopt a enforcement provision within the town.
You said no watering on Friday, you meant Sunday, right? Is it Friday?
I believe Friday is the one day that not
Nope.
even or odd can water. So
Didn't
if
know
you look
that.
through the ordinance, it's
Thought it was Sunday.
very specific. It talks
Why
about
don't
if
we
you're
do
an
mine
even
Sunday?
address, you have these days. If
Yeah,
you're an
yeah,
odd
I knew
address,
that
you have
part,
these
3 and
days.
3.
Right.
6, so they knocked that one day.
One day, so it's easy for enforcement purposes that
Right.
if you're driving around on Friday and you see
Any
who's
water.
watering, it makes it easier for enforcement.
Well, mine is set for
All right.
Friday. I thought it was Sunday.
Uh-oh.
Mine too.
All right, I'll now open the floor for public comment. Seeing none, I'll close the floor. I'll open the floor for commission discussion. Jeffrey?
Again, with the writing of the ordinance, we're adopting basically the county's ordinance, correct?
Yes.
Then why do we have in ours Division 2 water efficient landscape? That has nothing to do with irrigation of existing landscape. This is water efficient landscape. Why was that in our ordinance? I wanted that stricken and taken out of there. So it is in accordance with the ordinance from the county, which has no word whatsoever in their ordinance about water efficient landscape. It's a totally different subject.
Is it a county ordinance or is it the South
Look on
Florida
the,
Water
it's in the
Management
paperwork, the
District
county ordinance is in the
Water
paperwork.
That's this is ours. The county has adopted, right?
Where are you, Jeff? Oh, water
This
efficient.
is
Yeah.
showing where we're inserting it in our code.
Well, it
So
shouldn't be
we-
under water efficient landscape because it has nothing to do with water efficient landscape. This is about landscaping, or irrigation
Irrigation.
existing landscape, not installing water efficient landscape.
Good point.
Measure rule of.
We have to be clear on these laws.
Where does it?
Where,
It's the third line of
Of
the
the
actual
ordinance itself.
ordinance. And then it must be backed up in the legalese somewhere.
It's not.
It never mentioned? You did a string search?
Article 4, landscaping, Division 2, water efficient landscape.
And it's not in the
No.
county
Terminology.
ordinance either about water efficient landscape.
Right, terminology. Is that taken right from there? All right, while Christie's digging in, Christine, do you have anything besides Jeff's point to discuss?
I think Jeff's point is picking lint out of the belly button, and I think we're just codifying locally what we've got going on from the county level, and I'm all in
All
favor.
right, that's what she's
To
checking.
make the county
Steve?
ordinance exactly the same as ours.
That's what I think she's looking at. Steve?
Where?
You see on the ordinance itself, on the fourth
title block.
line,
Here.
a third line.
Way up here.
No, our
No,
ordinance,
On our title block.
-8.
Gee, we just goes right to your point
Yeah.
before.
Or, see this, Kristen? Oh, you there? Good.
Oh, in the title.
Right, third line
Well,
down.
title's kind of important.
See, there's their ordinance.
Mhm, yeah.
And just copy that ordinance.
Is this simple to do, Christie, or is this,
Oh, she's just checking it.
because we all kind of agree, right?
Is
We
it
just
the
wanna know what-
title, the title to that article?
It's on, that's the third line of the ordinance itself. Division 2, Article 4, landscaping, Division 2, water efficient landscape. Terminology. Maybe that's the title they have. Besides that one, Martin, do you have any input on that?
Yes.
Why?
So the South Florida Water Management District is basically the agency that oversees our water coming from Lake Okeechobee, oversees our groundwater, oversees basically everything that we do in this town. And in the county and throughout the other counties that are south of Lake Okeechobee, and probably some of them are north of Lake Okeechobee. I have a huge issue with them coming to us and wanting to adopt, basically wanting us to be the enforcer of their ordinances for two reasons. A, I don't think it should be placed on our town to be enforcing their ordinances. More so, I really object that the South Florida Water Management District is piddle-paddling with these little watering district things where you can put your sprinklers on for 5 minutes on this day and 10 minutes on the next day, while they are giving away massive amounts of water to our sugar industry, while they're allowing the sugar industry to burn down canes, a practice that is outlawed in pretty much every other country. And for them to come to us and ask for this, I have a serious issue with that. If they want to enforce it, it's on their books. If they want to enforce it, they have the authority. They can come here and they can write tickets.
Can I ask you a philosophical question? Take the county out of this, if you can. Do you think it is a good idea for the town to try to enforce some type of conservation water element?
Particularly for our town, I do not see where in our town we have violators. I go out early in the morning sometimes, and you see the sprinklers running in certain places. I don't see that our residents in this particular town, there might be one, two, granted. I don't see that this town is a water wasteful town where we need to go to this extreme and try to appease the South Florida Water Management District.
No, I said take them out of this.
Do you eat almonds?
No,
excuse me, Mayor?
Because there's a gallon of water
Let me ask
going
the
in
chief.
each.
1 second.
Or 18.
Ask the chief something. Chief, historically, haven't we given little notices to people who have their sprinklers running during a drought period?
We have, in years past, we have enforced the water management district's ordinance locally.
Right.
Through the use of not only a warning system, but also a uniform code citation. One of our biggest offenders was the city of Boynton Beach across the street. Who we actually cited on more than one occasion. For the most part, our residents are not willful violators. When we were enforcing it because we were in drought conditions, we did have some residents that were repeat violators. Those were the ones who did get citations issued to them. But for the most part, it was a matter of folks not being here and not realizing that their timer was either offset or that their days were wrong based on their address. And in many cases, we actually, for those residents, we would personally reprogram their sprinklers. I know that's hard for everyone to believe.
I believe it.
But we would personally reprogram them just so they were no longer in violation.
I might have to ask you to come over to my house because I don't know how my sprinkler thing works.
Begs the question then, since we have been historically doing this already, how have we been doing it without this ordinance? And if we have authority to do it without this ordinance?
Do we have authority to do it?
Yes, please, please.
So I don't know if what the chief was talking about is there's two issues at play. If there's a declared water shortage, that gives an ordinance that actually, I believe, is under the separate provision of the code that if there's a declared water shortage, you can enforce that. This ordinance is to be outside of a declared water shortage and in place all the time. If there's a declared water shortage, those provisions apply. If not, what's before you tonight applies. And to your issue, there is currently in our code under Chapter 66, Article 4, Landscaping, Division 2, it's called Water Efficient Landscape. And so the reason that's in the title is because that's the specific division that this is amending. So that is actually, it's just a call out of the title, because I was going crazy when you mentioned it to say, what does it say about water efficient landscape? Because I hadn't seen that in it, but it's just calling it out because in the title you're specific as to what parts of the code you're in.
And that's in our.
So currently we do have a Division 2 in our code that says water efficient landscape. The county ordinance doesn't get into that kind of detail because they actually repealed their entire chapter dealing with watering.
They repealed it?
Yeah, if you read the county ordinance, they repealed it and redid that entire
did this.
provision.
So why are we even doing this then? I'm trying to understand.
They
We're going
repealed
to-
another one, not this one. They didn't repeal this
Well,
one.
I'm saying that the whole point is, if there is a severe water shortage, we have the mechanism to cite people.
Well, wait a minute,
Okay.
it's more than that, actually.
But now it's,
South Florida Water District, we cannot adopt alternative, less restrictive irrigation schedules than the water district dictates to us.
Exactly.
Less
And,
restrictive.
and there's
So we
something to be
can't
said
jump
about
before
our
it is.
following this and putting this ordinance could help us with future grants.
That's
to
the only
me-
interesting.
Which to me is, yeah. that's-
When's the last time we got a grant?
Gotten a grant from-
Wait, doesn't mean we're not going to now. Have some faith here.
No,
Goodness
no,
gracious.
I'm sorry. And if you're, and listen, if you're coming to me and you're telling me, well, if you don't do this, then we might not be giving you money.
Oh,
you know,
welcome to
you're
the law.
Really
how
irking me
it-
there
that's
on the
how it
wrong
goes.
foot.
If I may, Madam
Please.
Mayor, if you don't adopt it, that doesn't mean that this
Right.
can't be enforced in the town. It's
Exactly.
just gonna be enforced through a mandatory requirement of South Florida Water Management District that's impacted the town. The
Right.
whole intent of this and the way the South Florida Water Management District is selling this is it gives localized control to educate the residents on restricting their water usage, and it gives you the enforcement ability locally so that you can help educate and warn people that they're in violation.
Right.
Because if there's some violators, South Florida Water Management District may show up unannounced and start enforcing the law without that education period and without those warnings.
Would they do that? They'd contact you, wouldn't they?
They have
Yeah.
done enforcement locally.
Without you knowing?
Well, they normally notify us that they're here, but they don't
They don't-
pre-plan that notification.
They don't tell you ahead of
But
time.
that's one of the reasons why we took the initiative in 2014, which is, I believe, the year that was problematic for us last.
But that was a shortage.
That was a shortage, and she is correct. That is exactly why we were doing the enforcement. We traditionally do not monitor that on a daily basis throughout the town. Additionally, and she can speak more legally as to the topic, but the county ordinances that are typically written in Palm Beach County are open for enforcement to all law enforcement members or officers. So
Sheriff.
some of those ordinances that may apply in the county's ordinance section does have the ability to be enforceable at the local police department level. And therefore would lead to the point she was making about whether we really adopt the ordinance locally or not. The enforcement mechanism does exist there. So the benefit is that if we did become eligible for some kind of funding or environmental proof, that eligibility would exist. Because the enforcement does exist through either the county ordinance or through alternative measures.
Quick,
All right then.
Quick question for town manager. Do we have any of their brochures educating people out in our lobby? And do we put it as part of the new resident package that we give to people?
That's a good idea.
I think so, but I'd have to check
Okay.
to be 100% sure.
I mean, because if the guise is really us educating, which I don't think is a bad thing, I mean, at least we should have the materials out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for
You're supposed to say,
educating.
I'm all for
I'm not-
I'm all for
I know,
doing,
you're not-
giving
okay.
people the opportunity to look at it, but I'm just not into creating law. Look at every single ordinance. Every single one's a new law in the town. This is not necessary.
All right then.
I guess the issue is,
Can I
do
hear
we
a
have a
motion?
problem, number one? Number two, if somebody lives on like 3 streets, that's, I would think, going to cause some confusion. And number three, just an interesting point, the reason you can't water on Friday is it's the day when businesses are supposed to use water.
And we have no businesses.
Right.
But you water on Friday, so you must
Yeah,
be
so it
business.
doesn't matter, yeah.
Because we have no businesses.
All right, so could I entertain a motion?
Crickets.
I'm not gonna make it.
I know, I can't even look at you.
I guess that failed.
I guess, oh
Madam
my.
Mayor, if
Please.
there's no vote, it
Dead.
nothing
Yeah.
happens. But you have to vote one way or the other.
Okay, I'll make a motion to deny ordinance or not adopt ordinance number 2022-08.
I second.
first reading.
All right,
second
all in favor of denying the first reading of dash 2022-08, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Call the vote. We got it. 3-2 to deny ordinance on first reading.
Yeah, I guess the first time that ever happened.
Did you like that?
Can we deny the second one next meeting? The second read?
Oh, I
It
think
doesn't
Billy's
go
coming
to
after
Yeah, we
here.
get a second reading.
Don't get us that.
All right, agenda
Ties
item
of
number 8, purchase of storage facility for Public Works. Town Manager Stevens, please advise us on this item.
I'm actually gonna turn this one over to Chief since he worked with Billy on this, or Martin. This was originally his requested item.
You want me to?
I don't mind, honestly.
We have a lot of town equipment that is parked in our back parking lot. We have police cars that are parked in the back parking lot. We have a garage facility back there. And as we have grown and bought more and more equipment to service the needs of this town, like we had 2 months ago, we did a whole new pump that sits on a trailer that needs to be properly stored in order to keep it out of the elements. We are basically at a point where the garage facility that we have is being used for equipment mainly and not for the cars anymore. We need to get more stuff indoors to protect it from the elements. And when you look at I don't know if we can bring that up or not, some of the equipment that has been sitting out there previously, how it's rusted. It's just the environment that we all live in. We all know that. You leave something outside, it will eventually go bad. So I suggested to Billy to look into storage facilities, steel buildings that are the same material as the roofing materials that you use today here, the modern roofing materials. And he got a quote, and I was pleasantly surprised that the quote actually came in that low. Between the concrete pad that this building would sit on, it's hurricane proof, and the building itself, it comes to like $48,000, I believe, or $45,000. So it's a fairly reasonable investment that we're making into making sure that our equipment stays as new as possible. And over the course of the life of the equipment, if we can get 4, 5, 6 more years out of something, that in itself holds a value. And,
Yeah, keep going.
And that's basically why I suggested that this should be on the agenda.
So this is the photos I think you were wanting. I apologize, but the bookmark was actually for the bottom instead.
Yes.
This is some of the equipment that we have gotten rid of over the last several years that is obviously just deteriorated to the point that it becomes non-usable. And we've been storing everything that we've replaced these items with inside of our storage facility, but now we're to the point where we're completely out of space. That's ultimately where we're at. We have saws, pumps, generators, portable pumps, vehicles, cranes, you name it, trailers, everything we're trying to keep inside to create the longest life cycle that we can get out of the equipment we're purchasing.
I agree.
So it's falling under the shed ordinance?
I was just counting the minutes so that.
You're right.
We might need to get.
You know that it's not warranted, that because of the distance to the ocean.
Right.
Yes.
But I mean,
But
it
it's the
saves
same
money on the
material
other.
that you use for the roof,
Well, I'm
which
with
is
you.
not warranted.
Now we can
Alright.
paint it.
Do we need public comment on this?
Yeah.
All right, so can we have public comment, please? Mr. Marsh, step forward.
Long time, so.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Marsh, 14 Hudson. Is this going on this site?
Yes.
Okay, because when we did this building, we shoehorned every parking space to make it conform. So I'd like to just hear, some more detail about how many parking spaces may be lost or whatever.
The parking spaces that are lost, it's in that package. The parking spaces that are lost are actually regained in the structure. So you're, well,
going-
You're
I
still
know.
losing the parking
And if you
spaces.
believe that one,
You're losing the parking spaces because the stuff that's in the parking spaces now take
I,
off.
But Mark,
I
it-
understand, I just.
it's,
Well, can't we put it somewhere else?
it's not on the asphalt. It's 40 feet in from the asphalt. In other words, it doesn't suck up parking spots other than an entrance to it.
Chief, you want to comment on that? Mr.
So
Marsh?
the plan is to actually put it in the far back corner of the facility where there's actually some flat land still existing. And it would take up approximately 3 parking spots if we were to shift it to the furthest point that we could put it in. But we currently are taking up 5 parking spots with vehicles that would be relocated back into the garage. So we'd actually gain 2 parking spots by moving the.
Okay, I'm just saying, you gotta be careful.
Right.
Because the word shed just came up.
Thank you, Mr.
And, so.
Is
but
there
I-
a parking metric for town hall?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you definitely
Oh,
have to
yeah.
have
This
a certain
particular room.
amount of space.
And you can see by
Right.
a night like tonight,
Mm-hmm.
it's a problem. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, you have to go with a worse condition rather than the logical condition. So just a point, I'm just curious if we can mitigate somehow. And I mean, the point, if it could be used for storage of vehicles.
Right.
That'd be a good way to mitigate. I just caution that.
So that's a good point, though. Is a town violating its own building code by taking out parking spaces as required to have with the size of the building we have?
Well, we have useless parking spaces now that have equipment that's sitting.
Yeah, but
there.
the key word is parking spaces.
Right, I know.
Right.
And I mean, some of
Not
the,
usable.
I mean, Chief, do the salad port still? You do use that for,
We use that regularly. Every time we make an arrest, we use the salad.
no,
board.
I know you need
Yeah.
it for, I didn't know if you needed the whole thing, so.
Yeah.
Reverse in instead of drive through. It was a luxury you gave, so.
Yeah.
So make sure you don't send the plans through P&Z review.
Yeah. Come talk to me on the side.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
if the desire is to approve this item, we can have our zoning official look at it to make sure it complies with all the zoning codes of the town.
Sounds like a good idea. So if we're going to do that, do we need to do that before we approve it, or can we do that in tandem? How do we do
Well,
this?
we get conditional approval.
Conditional.
Right? All right, so I think we already had our commissioner comments, correct, before we went to the public? So let's entertain a motion to approve with conditions.
You should.
I'll make a motion to approve the accessory structure, storage facility structure as requested in item number 8, with the condition that the zoning official ensures that we are still in compliance with the parking ratio in conjunction with that structure.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right then, so agenda item
Good
number
point, by the
9.
way.
I'm sorry?
Mark, that's a good point with the parking.
All right, 9.
Well, he built the place.
Well, if he doesn't know, who would? All right, request for building permit extension for that 6273 North Ocean Boulevard. Town Attorney Godot, please advise us on this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you may know, we've been working on this for a little while, myself, the town manager, and the building official, to really establish just cause, which is the standard in the code for this commission to approve a building permit extension. At this time, we're not quite ready, but I just wanted to give you a status update. We have had a meeting with the attorneys involved, the attorney for the neighbors and the attorney for the owner. We'll continue to work with them until we can get the draft agreement in a format that we believe we should bring before you for consideration. That agreement will lay out ideally just cause for giving them the extension of the building permits. Hopefully that we'll be able to finish that agreement up in the next week. Perhaps if it takes longer, we'll just add this on to the June agenda on a regular meeting. Since obviously the owner is anxious to get back to work to finish the project, we may ask that we consider a special meeting to hear the matter. But at this time, I can't advise you on that because I don't know how much further it's going to take to get the agreement in a format that staff finds acceptable.
So there's nothing for us to do.
Correct.
All right, do we need to defer or are we just? You
Just
said-
defer, if there's a consensus to defer,
All right.
that would be my
To the
recommendation.
next meeting.
You need to open up for public comment first.
I certainly do. All right, we'll open it up for public comment. Mr. Weiner?
For the record, Michael Weiner. I'm the attorney for the Chivelles and for the Barishes. I appreciate your comments. I get a sense that there's a consensus for deferral tonight. However, I do want to place on the record that I do believe this is a quasi-judicial hearing and that your actions may not be in accordance with the appropriate procedures. If you want to hear more on that, I will be happy to do it. I noticed that the other people were not here, so I'm not quite certain what arrangements were worked out with the city attorney tonight, but I find it surprising that I'm the only one who is appearing at this particular time. So for the record, I'd like to reserve all rights. If you would like to hear more, I am certainly happy to make a presentation to you.
Attorney Goodell, how shall we proceed? I think you've been in touch here.
I advised both attorneys via email today that what I would be doing is asking for this item to be deferred.
All right. Is there any other public comment? All right, I'll close the floor to public comment. Do we have any commissioner comment?
Do you need a motion or a consensus?
Do we need a consensus?
Consensus is fine.
All right, do we have consensus?
Can we get consensus on that it's going to be on the next?
Well, it depends if
regular-
they present the
Right.
plans. You know what I mean?
Not unless you got a crystal ball.
Right, precisely.
Well, but even if they would present the plans,
But
I
the
think
town
they
attorney
should
just
come
told
back
you
on the
if
next.
the owner does get the plans together, they're gonna come
Right.
to us before June meeting and ask for a special.
Possibly a special meeting. So consensus to defer.
Yeah.
Have consensus?
Which we can deny.
All right, I think,
Yeah.
everybody good, Martin?
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
consensus to defer. All right then, staff committee reports. Chair Marsh, I want to come back on up.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. For the record, Mark Marsh, Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I have an interesting task here because I'm reporting on a meeting I was absent. So I had jury duty instead. Anyway, I promised both Tracy and Carla I would do this because I must thank Rick Carey because he did a great job on my behalf. So. We had a planning and zoning commission, or at the planning and zoning commission, we reviewed the following as it on 18th of April 2002. The members present were all regular members were present except myself, and alternate member Briner attended in my place. There was no public comment. Minutes were approved March 21st, 2022 were approved and submitted. The only discussion item, which was a quasi-judicial hearing, was 62 Harbor Drive North. Staff, including our planner, building official, and our town engineer, presented the staff report and the proposed conditions of approval. The applicant, the design architect, was a design architect, landscape architect, and civil engineer. presented the plans and answered the commission's questions regarding the proposed plan. Please note here, just this is for the first time, we've had a good or proper representation of an applicant by having the architect, the landscape architect, and the civil engineer. And I know that sounds like overkill, but it does help move and answer questions that the commission may have. So I hope we can set that pattern in motion for future applications. The town clerk, Armstrong, read Chair Marsh's, my comments about the project into the record as part of the public comment. I did review the application and I did make some comments. The project was approved, subject to the architect addressing the concerns detailed in Chair Marsh's comments. The landscape concerns were discussed, porches not to be enclosed, address pool elevations, and all conditions placed by staff. So the project moved ahead as approved with the conditions of addressing some of the comments. In terms of the Planning and Zoning Commission comments, Member Kaczynski thanked the commission, you all, and staff for that were involved in the land purchase adjacent, and I think we all agree that was a great step forward. Member Hennigan asked the staff to address porches as it impacts the site coverage calculations, which I think we'll be discussing in more detail. And Vice Chair Carey recommended for the board to address elevation. And I assume by this he meant the FEMA elevations, which is going to affect the town tremendously. And I think we're all aware and conscious of the impacts that might cause. He discusses how there are now examples of how homes at the new elevations affect and are apparent to the neighbors. He further advised that he would not be present at the May Planning and Zoning meeting. So that was basically here. I would like to say this evening that I feel very proud to be part of this commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and more importantly, by the makeup of the board. I think the town is well represented. It's a good cross-section of people that are serving on that board, and we encourage more people to get involved. But currently, I think we have a very good, solid, educated board that can represent the town in the approvals. Which brings me to my last point, which I should have got up with the ordinance regarding deferral. This was something we discussed, and being an applicant in many towns locally, if you're presenting a project and there's a lot of time that goes into it, there's nothing worse than you getting a rejection or a non-approval. What I suggested to the Planning Commission was that we look at the option of deferral, and I think with Christie's help, we've kind of implemented this, hopefully, because it's easier for an applicant to hear the issues and go back and try to amend or address them. They don't have to, but that's the option that's given to them. And I think it's fair. It's not wasting money. It's very rare. I mean, it depends on the applicant. Obviously, there are some applicants that are well-trained, others that are a little bit less trained. But I think it's the only fair way to give an owner and applicant a fair review rather than getting a no vote and having to start over or whatever. So I think that's a really positive move, and I know some of the commission.
But I think I totally agree with what you're saying. My problem with it was you had deferral, and then you didn't do it, the town, I don't know who the staff did. They tagged landscaping into the same ordinance. So I couldn't in good conscience, if it was a separate item, I would have voted for deferral in a second.
Yeah, but I think there's a blanket or an umbrella here for site plan approval, landscaping.
There is now, for sure.
No, landscaping is part of the requirement. So I think that's why it's
Well,
maybe.
From my conversations, that was the reason we voted on its ordinance, so the landscaping is now part. It was assumed it was part, but
It's
it
always
never
been
was.
part, because on the application, that is a.
So I don't think the people that dissented had a problem with the deferral option.
Right.
It was the landscape.
Okay. No, I'm just saying, I'm thankful that this will pass, hopefully, and pass. Because it's fair on both our commission reviewing, as well as, more importantly, the applicant and owner. So, with that, I thank you. Good to
Thank
see
you. Good to see you.
Art,
All right, let's see. What? Talking fashion. Agenda item number 11, Town Manager Stevens, please represent the town managers.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to mention that during item number 2 of the agenda, when you talked about the board appointments, I did forget to mention that I did receive a call on Friday from Britt Flanagan. She said that she had been reached out by several people and encouraged to give her name. But she called after the packages had already gone out, after the deadline, and after the ballots had already been prepared. We did have a discussion, and I did tell her that I would tell you. She called, but I forgot to mention it at that time. Because it was, it was after the deadline, we couldn't include it on the ballots due to the rules of procedure. I want to welcome Danielle Valdez to our team at Town Hall. Danielle started working for the town in May 2019, serving as dispatcher for the police department, and she's now going to serve as our deputy town clerk. Danielle is already familiar with the town's geography and codes, so transitioning her to deputy town clerk will be an asset to the town. Please join us in welcoming Danielle to her new role at Town Hall. In the month of April, we celebrated the employee anniversaries of our police officer, Alex Sassa, who has served the town for the past 2 years, police officer Mike Parkerson, who has served the town for 4 years, and the community officer, Deborah Boyle, who has served the town for 5 years. We thank them for their service and dedication to the town. I think Deborah's in the back.
I see her. Thank you.
Our annual shredding event held on Saturday, April 23rd was a great success again this year, and we received many compliments and thanks for the service. We had 52 people take advantage of this, with 6 of those being residents of Briny Breezes and the rest Ocean Ridge. I want to thank the team for going above and beyond for the residents by working on their day off to provide this service. As directed by the Town Commission at the April 18th goal setting workshop, we switched our phones to an automated service. But since then, we did receive many complaints that there's no longer a small town feel and that the new system was very cumbersome, as the caller could not remember, or the callers that called us could not remember the extensions that were voiced. And they needed to hang up and call back several times to remember which extension to press.
1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's quite a lot. So it was my recommendation that we shift back to the deputy town clerk answering the incoming phone calls so we can maintain our small town atmosphere for our residents and our customers. I did talk to you all during your staff meetings, and I think there was a general consensus to kind of get back.
Yeah, it was, it's not pretty hearing that automated thing.
No, I don't think so either.
I called twice, by the way.
Of course you did.
I was so mad listening to it the first time, I didn't hear the thing.
Remember 1, 2, 3,
And the second time I just went 0. I don't care. 0 always works.
So anyway,
I think it's fine. I think one of the people that was most frustrated, other than yourself, was Billy, because Billy usually calls town hall to ask different questions throughout the day while he's performing his duties, and he was getting so frustrated.
Oh,
trying
that
to
couldn't be pretty.
get somebody in a quick manner. As you all know, we closed on this sale of the Priest property on Friday, and I will continue to work on our grant opportunities for the town, as well as rezoning process for the piece of property and the county property as well. We did submit a federal appropriation request to Congresswoman Lois Frankel's office to request additional funding for our potable water infrastructure improvements along A1A. The town engineer suspects that the project cost will be more than the ARPA funding will cover for us, so I'm trying to get us additional funding. We may need to hire or consider hiring a lobbyist in the future to help us secure funding. This federal appropriation that we applied for is very, very hard to get. But If we don't apply for it, we'll never know if we get it or not.
All right. Town Attorney Godot, do you have anything to report?
I don't, but I did want to make a comment about the Board of Adjustment, just so everybody can understand. One thing that I think is important to understand, staff relies on the application submittal from the property owner seeking the variance. And what the town doesn't require, which is not unique, because most towns don't require this, is we don't require construction drawings for your variance. So oftentimes what staff has to rely on is hand sketches of things or unprofessional drawings. And the reason most towns don't require construction drawings is because obviously there's a cost to preparing, construction drawings. So the theory being that if you don't know if you're going to get your variance or not, most don't want you to go ahead and spend that extra money to get construction drawings. So for our building official, he doesn't do the thorough review that he would do when someone submits for a building permit where he's looking at professional drawings, construction drawings. So town is reliant on what the applicant submits. When we go to these hearings, they're quasi-judicial, but the burden's on the applicant to produce the evidence for the consideration of the board. If nobody shows up, then the only evidence they really have to consider is what the applicant puts forward, or if someone shows up and perhaps they don't show up with an attorney, they don't understand how to counter that evidence. So every hearing is a little bit different. I can certainly go into more depth about the criteria that's considered for each decision, but the hearing is really driven by what the applicant submits. And if they don't fill out the application correctly, or if they don't necessarily put in all the things they need a variance from, we may not catch it because it's sort of based on the value of their application. So I just want to make that known so that if you're looking at what could we do differently perhaps to change that process, a lot of it is symptoms of the application we get. And not an unusual process. Most towns don't require, like I said, construction drawings or a professional application, but that's where you sort of start with and go from there.
Can I tag one thing on that? Somebody brought up at length, which I thought was incorrect, but you'll correct me. By definition, a variance does not set a precedent.
Correct, because variances are
Right.
case by case basis.
Remember somebody made the whole point, you're doing this, so now every single waterfront owner is going to want to do it. No, it doesn't set precedents. That's why it's called a variance.
Right, and you're correct. I think what the thinking is that if your Board of Adjustment isn't going to apply the criteria, then every variance that then comes before them, they're not going to necessarily hold you to the letter of the criteria. And so that's the argument that it's setting a precedent that they don't really strictly follow the criteria, because quite frankly, rarely would a variance ever be granted if you strictly construed all of the criteria.
I've got a question for you, and it was brought up several times by Mr. and Mrs. Fortuna, that they didn't feel that past unpermitted work was brought to the attention of the board. So for a staff, I know staff makes recommendations and you go over each line, each variance, each requirement for the variance, but would it be beyond the pale of comparison outside of potentially the work that it takes for the staff to also say there was an unpermitted work in 2007, there was there was an encroachment that had to be taken down in 2009, because I think those start to paint potentially a picture that might be part of what the board would use to actually use some of their discretion.
That's something we could consider. Now, it's not technically one of the criteria
Right.
that you look at, that this person is a bad actor. But, yes, it's something that certainly we could consider as putting in the application a history section. Perhaps in the application itself, we could ask the property owner to state whether or not the work has already been done.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, why wouldn't we ask that?
So we could put that in there, but again, if you're gonna stick strictly to the criteria, being a bad actor isn't part of the criteria. And even if the work is completely already done, if they can show that they meet the criteria otherwise, then from a technical standpoint, it should be approved.
Yeah, but if they haven't pulled a permit and they've already done the work, they're going in front of somebody looking for forgiveness, not permission. And to me, that is asked backwards as to what they're supposed to be making a decision on.
I absolutely understand the argument, and it's sort of like the argument that they get faced with is all of my neighbors are fine with this, and nobody's here to object. It's sort of like, well, that's not part of the criteria, but believe me, it plays into everybody's consideration.
But if to Martin's point, if you were using and going typically under a quasi-judicial, I mean, you get your hat handed back to you in a real court of law by using some, that as a criteria. So I mean, either we're going to follow quasi-judicial rules and we're going to have the full picture, or you know what, you might as well just ban the group, because all they do is say yes, 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 yes. I know you don't. I'm looking at you, Betty. I see you.
The sticky part is there's no penalty to the homeowner who inadvertently submits inaccurate plans, information, drawing. And you don't want to go down that road. The only penalty they get is if the permit is, the variance is denied. So that's the sticky ground you've into, Christine.
I get that, but I mean, I don't think that negates anything that I just necessarily said.
When staff makes the recommendations on those applications, is there an actual staff recommends to approve, or
you don't make recommendations,
or is it based on
No, you don't
they don't make
Usually-
criteria, right?
Usually, we go through the criteria and give you the
Is the
facts
criteria
associated
met
with
or
that
not?
criteria. And then the recommendation at the bottom usually is for the board to take everything into consideration with the application, the staff review, and then any testimony that's made in the hearing, and to gather all that information to generate their either approval or denial.
Yeah, but ultimately it comes down to the people on the board.
Yep.
The people on the board, the whole point of the board adjustment is really what you did, how does it affect your neighbors? That's the whole point of the advertising. If none of the neighbors show up to voice their concern about it, then yes, that is part of the process, unfortunately, but that is part of the process. However, when you have a neighbor that does show up and literally says, hey, it's in my backyard, and it's still get approved, that's egregious, in my opinion.
But was that the timetable with the Fontaneros, or did they miss the appeal by?
No, they were there.
They were there.
They were there and spoke
missed their
against.
ability
Yeah,
to
they were there
appeal.
and spoke.
They missed
long
the
and
time
hard
on the
against it.
appeal on the back end, but they were there
Right.
and spoke very, very strongly against what was going on. And I agree with you that, I would just, I mean, I think it's unfortunate, and I don't know how you get around it. I really don't like neighbor making decision upon neighbor. And I don't know how, maybe if you just papped it to the magistrate and we wouldn't be put in these divisive, there's enough division within our town to begin with. So, I mean,
But it depends on the nature of the variance, though.
So I understand what you're saying, that it doesn't affect somebody else, but what it does affect is our code and our regulations. And if everybody knows that they can sideswipe that, then you might as well, take our book of codes and put it in the intercom.
But I think that's an overreach.
Variance doesn't do that.
Yeah, variance should not be that easy to get.
No, but variance is not a precedent. That's what Christie was explaining.
Now, Madam Mayor, what I can say is, I know at least one city that has disbanded their Board of Adjustment and moved to a special magistrate. Sort of like for code enforcement, when you got away from the boards and went to a special magistrate with someone with some legal training to make that decision. They've also done it with variances to hire a special magistrate. And if you apply for a variance, there's going to be a person who's going to make that decision. It cuts both ways, though, because if that magistrate is going to look specifically at the criteria, they're not going to look at a bad actor's history. They're not really going to look at the neighbors who show up, who encourage it or vote against it, unless they have competing, competent, substantial evidence that gets past the applicant's evidence. Otherwise, it's going to be purely a legal decision based on the criteria, and for the most part, that means most variances will not be granted.
Right, do they check the list?
They check off the list.
Right, which might not
And
be such a bad
they'll
thing.
look at the staff report and say this criteria wasn't met, or this criteria, you don't meet one, can't grant it. So, there's different ways of doing it. There's pros and cons to each side, and it's very tough to make those types of decision when, as Vice Mayor pointed out, it's a neighbor making a decision for a neighbor. It can be hard.
We do that when we sit up here.
I had a conversation with Bruce the other day, 45 minutes, and I explained to him how I saw, what the Board of Adjustment's position is, and he explained to me how he came to some of these decisions. And as I said to Ms. Cassidy, that I understand how they reach those decisions. I understand where they're coming from. I disagree with it, but I understand where they're coming from. For me, I think it's more of a trying to get all these Board of Adjustment members on the same page as to having an understanding what their position is, and really the leeway that you can give and how far that leeway can go. And I think that some of that is unclear to some of those members.
And maybe it's the checklist.
And it's an educational thing. I don't think that it's an ill will. I don't think there was anything done that was inappropriate.
No, but
in their decisions.
I'll challenge that a little, because I think Attorney Godot and Town Manager Stevens has done that repeatedly. It's not just a one-off thing, so I don't know.
Well, I also think it's the people we put on the board. It's really comes back to us.
Correct.
But the biggest problem is we don't have enough people coming forward.
Our choices are
to
limited.
change up the Board of Adjustment, to look at people today we did a good thing with Mr. Rodriguez. I think that's one of the, he has construction experience. Look at the experience of the people before you put them on the board, before you put the X on the person's name. That is the biggest consideration. So it does come back to us to make sure the people that we do put on the board are people that have an understanding of what they're doing.
So what do you do when you're in the middle of a board? What do you do now in the middle of a board?
You can't. You're basically working to the next.
All right, so.
I mean, you make sure you have Betty on there for forever.
Yeah, Betty, you can't go anywhere.
A member in perpetuity.
But so I wonder if we could think, Attorney Godot, I wonder if we could, we're obviously saying that we've got some issues, all right? And I talked with Tracy a while back and said, maybe more of an education or the checklist or something to give the parameters versus the feeling of how it's come off that day, so to speak.
I don't think that certain members of the board, it was ever explained to them if they couldn't answer those 5 silly questions.
That's what I'm saying.
That they shouldn't get their variance. That they didn't have to ask, was there another way they could do it? Did they think about this after they'd done something wrong? And sometimes people aren't quite truthful, but I think we need to have the people that are on variance understand that anything they do is also going to affect their neighbors. And would you like to have your property affected the same way?
So
I don't think that comprehension ever went across to some.
Right, but we talked about that because those were my questions, hardship versus, because variances should not be that easy to get. Therefore, the hardship, the questions, what have you, maybe some sort of hybrid, what can we do? Obviously, if it's been this much conversation and we've had enough people weigh in on this evening, we need to maybe take a good look here.
Once again, it's like 6273. What do we have here? One strong incident, right? And so now we're going to develop the wheel.
I've been going all these meetings.
My phone rings after every meeting.
Yeah, it's not just one.
I've only heard one that's egregious, which is
I'm sitting there with Martin.
No, there were several.
Yeah, there have been several. So maybe.
Some of them not.
Maybe we just have a spate of problems just now, because how long has it been since we've had?
Yeah, but I think that means things are changing.
You know, see,
And
I don't
that's
want
the
to keep
problem.
change when it's been working for a very, very long time.
Exactly.
Yeah, but just because
I
it's
think
not,
it's
it
the
did
amount
then
of
doesn't mean
maybe
it will
amount of
now.
So,
construction we got going
Small
on.
town flavor.
I think that the neighbors, you elect those people to make the decision. And I think sometimes they make the wrong decision, believe it. Sometimes we make the wrong decisions.
Huh.
So it's gonna happen.
No, I
this
sat on the
particular-
board, I know how it works.
on
But
this
variances
particular-
should not be that easy to get, and there have been a lot of yays and not very many nays. So we talked about that. Do we maybe need to, the idea of taking it into a special magistrate, I don't think should be off the table. That's an interesting concept. Or then we have the also of maybe a more concise envelope for them to know when they're making their decisions. It's not, do I feel for that neighbor or do I feel for that? It's what hits the buttons.
Well, I think it's specifically listed out in the code.
I know, but
It
maybe they
really
need a
is.
little more.
That list exists. The guidance, the guidelines for the Board of Adjustment exists. They have that.
Right, I
They
know.
have it in front of them. And they have the ability as judges to overrule whatever it says there and come to a different conclusion. If you don't like that, then we as the commission have the right to appeal that, or the affected actually we do.
That it goes
The
to the
affected,
circuit.
Here we do.
no, we
Oh,
you
then
too.
we gotta check it.
we
It ends up
can,
in
we
court.
can object to it, as can the neighbor object to it, or the aggrieved party object to it. Correct?
Mhm.
Thank you. So I do not wanna change up the system. I don't think we should change up the system. I think there were things done that were not, they probably shouldn't have been done. That's my personal opinion to this. Obviously there were members that thought of this different. I think after having talked to at least this one member, I know that the thought process that went into that was misguided and probably as of today would not have happened again. That is where my whole thing is I would like to make sure that there's an education, a clear understanding of these 5 members, what their situation is.
So I wrote down that there was 3 ideas that were thrown out. One was a history section on the application asking if the permit had been pulled and if the work had been done and if they had any other solution. I think that's an easy fix. That's
added to it.
All right.
That's a click,
Yeah.
click.
Yep.
The other thing was the potential recommendation for having the applicant submit construction drawings, which would allow our building official to do a much more thorough review and potentially look at the applicant's information to see if it's even truthful.
It's too onerous, but I like the truthful part.
Yeah. Do they sign something when they submit the application that says, I know when it comes to the hearing, they have to raise their hand and tell the truth and hold the whole truth. But I mean, is that part of the
I think there's a
application?
certification. I don't know for sure, but a lot of applications have a certification where it's presented to the best of my ability. I think we have that on our variance. We'll have to check. But we can certainly make sure that that's on there, that what they're submitting is, to the best of their knowledge.
Well, how about, and you're not lying? I mean, to your best of your knowledge is very wishy-washy.
Penalty of perjury, under penalty of
Under
perjury.
penalty of perjury.
Scare
there you go. And then the
Scary.
third idea that I heard that came out was some pros and cons for maybe taking just the variances section, and anybody going for a variance goes in front of the special magistrate, but leaving the Board of Adjustments with all its other rules and regulations and duties. So.
No.
Okay.
All right, so we've gone off on this big, long tangent.
Yeah, but we heard from a lot of people to discuss that, so it's good that we know that there is an issue and maybe we need to start thinking about this.
What about revamping our notices to the public when a variance comes up, to letting them know that they should, if a neighbor wants to come and speak out in rejection of or not in favor of the application, that they should bring an attorney?
Yeah, we can certainly look at the notice to try to beef that up to make sure, that if someone's going to challenge it, I mean, I always recommend when people do variances, I do recommend that they hire an attorney because an attorney is going to ideally know everything that they should be seeking a variance for and fill out the application more accurately. It's not always true, but ideally. And certainly if you're going to challenge a variance, you should obtain legal counsel because they're going to know the standard that you need to produce the evidence to challenge what the applicant produces. But we can look at the notice and see if we can beef that up. We do have a Board of Adjustment meeting coming up. And perhaps I could add something to the agenda to just go through the criteria and have a
That would be
discussion.
good. I like that.
On that, after we hear the one applicant that we have, then go into a discussion, because I believe that application is for the administrative variance.
Oh, that would
It's
be
not a
good.
full
There's our
variance, it's
education part of what we were talking about, reminder of what they have.
I would do
to
it
take.
after because that one's a little
Right.
different
Yeah.
tweak because that's.
So that will, part of it will end and
And
then,
then go into an education requirement, our regular variances and the criteria that's required.
Everybody like that?
I think we should probably do that, maybe once a year when the board.
That's a good idea, too.
flips.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, how about a notification to the commission that a variance has been granted or not granted? At least we inform the commission in case we want to say, okay, we're going to, or bring it up and say we want to go ahead and challenge.
yeah.
Oh,
You
for us
know,
to
and because
challenge.
we
didn't hear
don't
about
get
that.
notified on that at all. We have to find out.
I'll tell you this.
Unless we go to the meetings like you do.
I've been in
Mark.
touch with Fornadoras.
Fornatora.
Yes,
Fornatoras. And on several phone calls. And the issue for them always comes up, well, the commission has the right to challenge this and the commission has the right to object to it, the commissioner. And I keep telling them, as much as I agree with their situation and as much as I, see this as something that has gone wrong, sitting here in this position, I would not challenge this because this is challenging directly a board that is appointed by us, unless there is something that is so outrageously grievous that we feel the need that we have to. But I don't think it rises to that particular level yet. When you hear people calling you left and right, when you get the phone calls, you'll know about that Board of
So I
Decision.
just don't want it to get to that level because that would be a horrible situation to put us
Correct.
in.
Right.
We would have to turn around and file suit against one of our own boards. I
But-
mean, that's just.
And that's the next step.
And that's exactly my point. So that's why we're trying to make sure that they understand their position so it doesn't come to.
Right, but Christy's point should put a pretty good dent in that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
those are some very good ideas.
When you do beef up the notice, can you also provide in the notice that if the ruling is not in like of what has happened, that there is a very time-sensitive appeal process? Because I
That's
think
what they
that's where
missed.
the four Natunas
That's where they
got caught,
missed,
too.
exactly
And
right.
that's according to statute, not just.
Yeah,
Right,
but I
it's a
mean, you know,
reminder to
yeah,
them,
definitely.
because they missed that totally
Absolutely.
and thought they were still within the time period.
Yep.
All right, I think that's great.
Thank you.
All right then. Chief Jones, please present the police chief's report.
The content of my report is in your package. As you'll notice, there's not huge changes from last month to this month. The numbers are fairly consistent. We did have quite a few vacations and absences on various shifts because of vacations and training and those kind of things, so the numbers are down a little bit. Other than that, there's really not much to discuss. The briny numbers are where they're normally at, with the exception of parking tickets being up considerably. That's kind of normal in season at this time. So really not a big change there. As far as the fire rescue report goes, it continues. This month was actually quite a lengthy fire rescue report for both us and Briny Breezes. But the content of the report is nothing abnormal. The timelines associated with it are not crazy for the types of calls for service. So I didn't really see anything there that stood out to be concerned with specifically. Other than that, I don't have much information for you. I will share with the commission that we have obtained a new medical device that will be deployed in our patrol vehicles very quickly. It's called a Life Vac. It's a device that helps with choking persons, whether you're an adult, infant, or a child. It's a very non-invasive device that any person with a little bit of training can utilize. We are the first agency in Palm Beach County to have this device, and that includes fire rescue. They do not have it. So again, this is just something that we're trying to advance our capabilities and skill set to be able to produce a better environment for the outcome of the residents that live in town during a medical incident or episode.
All right, thank
Was it a
you.
wet dry vac?
Kind of simple.
Oh, my
Yeah.
heavens.
Doesn't require power, but
Everyone, DeWalt.
you know, it's very, very effective.
Yeah,
Um,
please.
And, you know, it is.
Been here
We
too
have
long,
had,
been here too long.
Just so everybody's aware, I know there's not many people in attendance, but we did have an incident on Friday that led into a high-speed pursuit through town after we had received a call of a burglary in progress at a residence on Spanish River. The suspect ultimately was successful in fleeing from us that day due to a bright line train that came between the suspect vehicle and our police cars. We weren't willing to risk it. They were.
Thank you.
However, we were able to successfully identify the individual who lives in Fort Lauderdale, a younger black male. He has warrants now being filed for his arrest. So he won't evade the warrants forever. And other than that, crime is as usual. I mean, nothing that is a huge increase or anything of concern.
This was a car theft attempt, correct?
Well, ultimately, that's what it ended up being.
Okay.
He was attempting to steal a vehicle that was unlocked. However, the keys were inside the home. And he obviously didn't have much success. So
And could you bring us up to date on the boat?
So the sailboat is supposed to be getting removed this week. We were in process of getting it removed last week, and the sea tow company that we have contracted with had a boat malfunction with their engine, so they had to actually reschedule.
Jeff, why'd you get it out of here?
You know, we have two boats on the
I know,
shore.
you can't make this up.
Yeah, I did not
Yeah,
want
it's
two
over
boats
there.
on the shore. So, and then, of course, conditions got a little
Right.
rougher the latter part of the week.
Yes, it
So
was.
they're expecting the conditions to calm down a bit this week and be able to successfully remove it. So we
Okay,
don't have a specific date yet, but
hopefully next week.
hopefully within this week,
Okay.
it will be removed.
So
Chief,
hopefully by next week.
I had a question for you. At the recent League of Cities luncheon, the head of the county EOC spoke, and she talked quite extensively about different CERT programs. Do we have a CERT program in our town?
We do not have a town-specific program. We would utilize whatever program was available to us based on the communities around us and/or the county's system.
Okay.
I've got some experience in the prior organization I worked at, developing a CERT and then establishing training and all of the criteria that would be necessary is quite cumbersome. So it might not be something that the town is in a position to do currently, just food for thought. But it is, if it's something the commission's interested in, obviously.
I just didn't know if we had one or not, so you answer that question.
Okay, thank
Is that 2
you.
minutes in one?
2 minutes in one.
Oh, boy, it's getting silly down there. All right, Town Engineer Public
Remember
Works
that?
report was included in the meeting packages. Any questions or comments from commissioners? To you, it would be without Billy here. All right, agenda item 15, building official guide. Please present the building official report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is included in the current package. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Any questions? All good.
Amazing numbers.
I know, I'm circling those numbers. They're really
When she was
something, huh?
sick, 200 inspections.
Mm-hmm. A lot of inspection. How is, can I ask how our helpers working out? Are you
Very
happy?
well.
Good.
I actually, since you're asking, I must thank the Lake Worth Beach and the village of Wellington that have graciously agreed to assist in training for newly hired building inspector. That's going very well. So he finished up Lake Worth Beach, and this week he'll actually be doing some ride-alongs with Wellington. So that was a great opportunity.
Excellent.
That we did. So you'll be hearing some more about that later on.
Excellent,
And
thank
the
you very
Village
much.
of Wellington has the software program, the building permit software program that we are purchasing. So Rob is going to
Oh,
have
he'll train
training
on
on
that.
that software. And he'll
That'll
bring
be
his
good.
knowledge back to us.
Excellent. All right, town commissioner comments. Roles of the building official and building department staff by Commissioner Vishak. Please advise us on this.
So I put this on, and my brain is fried today.
I know, right?
Defer.
Defer? Let's defer it for June. Can we?
All right.
June is going to be very packed.
It's a big one?
Yes, it's a
Let's
very
just
big one.
finish up. I mean,
Because we deferred, right?
keep kicking the can.
Especially if you're gonna put the workshop for Old Ocean on there.
Right.
True.
It's gonna be big.
So my concern is that we're getting these. I'm getting feedback from some of our residents that there's like discussions that the building official is not doing his job right, and I get this. I get it on both sides. I get residents that are coming up to me and saying like, well, the building official is making horrible decisions and this and that. And then when you start hearing what they're saying, what their concerns are, all of a sudden you hear that, well, they were not doing what they were supposed to do, and then now they're mad at the building official for applying what was supposed to be done. That's one of them. I usually, the way I approach this is, I usually say, listen, this is why the building official does these things, and they're always to protect the town and our laws and us from liability. It's basically, it comes down to the building official protects us from liability. And it is not his job. Specifically there was one building where they had a condo building that had complained about, there was one resident that complained about a crack in the building, and then they had to spend money on engineering to make sure that this crack was a stucco crack and not a structural crack. We all know what a structural crack does, brings down buildings such as Surfside. So the town building official had rightfully requested that they needed to get an engineer and have the engineer say this is a stucco crack and not a structural crack. They didn't like that because they needed to spend money on it. And he comes up to me and he says, well, I mean, I'm in building for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it is. And I can tell a structural crack from a stucco crack. And I said, well, yeah, this might be true. And the building official might agree with you too, but it is not his job to absolve you from liability. It's not his job to take over the liability of saying this is a structural or this is a stucco crack. The point of this is he is enforcing our laws the way that we put them on the books. And after having years of very lax applications of our own building codes for various reasons, we are now having a building official that goes by the letter of the law. This is what is in the code. This is how it's being applied. This is what it is. My feeling to this is, sitting here, I have to understand and defend what he does. And that's why I'm putting this up here. I want to make sure that we all up here defend that our building official has the best of our town in his mind when he does the decisions that he does. We might not always agree to that, but at the end of the day, that's what's written in the code. And if we want to change something, then we need to change it in the code. We need to change it in the code, not him. He's just applying. So I want to make sure that everybody up here is on the same page when it comes to that, because I also heard from residents that there's sometimes these rumors flying around that things are going around that the commissioners apparently are not happy with the way that the building department. So I want to make sure that we're clear. We might disagree with some of the things, how it's run, and we can change those and we can have conversations about it. But the essence that our building official has the best of our town codes in mind should not be undermined. That's it.
All right.
And I'm hoping that
Any
you all
comments?
agree.
Pardon me? Any comments?
Well, I mean, I think it's the elephant in the room that we've kind of stepped in circle with a couple of times. And I always go back to, and I've said this from the very beginning since I stepped foot on dais, we as a town are still transitioning from a naughty teenager trying to break the rules to, you know, a young adult who's, you know, got their first car payment and figuring out how to do it. So, but I don't think it helps at all to be judge and jury and shoot from the hip without first turning stuff or comments back over to staff rather than just outlandishly or quickly, not outlandishly, just quickly agreeing with residents. Because when you come back to it, and I take as share of phone calls that everybody else does, it's usually the resident who didn't submit the application correctly, or they let it sit on their desk for 6 weeks and they forgot to turn it in, but now they want expedited stuff. So, I mean, what I'm hearing you say is that we need to give our town staff the benefit of the doubt before we act like judge and jury. And I totally agree with that. I tried not to even engage the calls to a certain level anymore without knowing stuff. So, you know what? And if we need, you know, if you feel like you only need one good reason to question the building official, I'll give you $1 million. We had $1 million in revenue. And you know what? I'm not willing to jeopardize that. And I surely don't want to see Mr. Guy leave and in any way have a hiccup in that flow. So I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Vishalak, and I support it.
I support it as well. You know, I'm a big supporter of Guys, and I get the same phone calls. And I come in, as Tracy knows, and I will ask Guy with these questions that I have been given, that this is done, this is done, this is done, and why. I come in, I get the answers. I get back to the resident, and they go, oh, didn't quite know that. Wasn't quite sure that's where the ordinance was. I had a conversation today where it's, you're not writing the ordinances, you're following them. And so many of the ordinances come from the Florida building. So I'm a big supporter, and I try and tell everybody they need to dig in a little deep before they complain.
So it's not $1 million in revenue, it's $1 million in your money that is paid in fees. Let's just be clear, it's not magic revenue. And on the rest, no comment.
How is it not revenue? They're fees that are being paid by our residents.
By our residents, right?
Right, yeah.
So it's not like a magic $1 million comes in from the building department, it comes in from our residents.
Correct, and I'm just saying I don't want that flow from our residents to potentially be interrupted.
Okay, fine.
So I support as well. I agree with what you say. We all good here? Guy, thank you for all you do. And I know you take it hard, you get it, but we support you. All right then. We have a motion to adjourn? No?
No, just hit the gavel, say no.
Just give me the motion already, my God.
No motion needed. Adjourn.
No need a motion to adjourn. All right.